What's going on, guys? Another week, another debacle. I figured I'll just go live and talk to you guys for about an hour after the game rather than make a video because what are you going to say at this point? Like, what are you going to say when you make a post-game video? I said it last week. Like, I am completely, emotionally detached from this New York Giants football team for the rest of the year. I said I've been numb now for about 2 weeks coming into this week. Really, after Daniel Jones went down, I've been numb in terms of having rage or being extremely emotionally invested with this football team. This team is a disaster. They've been a disaster all year, start to finish. We went in with higher expectations than we should have coming into the year based off the fact that we won 6 games last year, and obviously we overestimated our team, or at least some of us did. And it's been a disaster. Obviously, we've had some unfortunate injuries as well. And with Daniel Jones out, yeah, we're not near the same offense, but it's not like the offense was much better when he was in there to begin with. And we went out there today. We got our asses kicked, like I thought we would. Maybe not necessarily as bad as it was. Did I think it would be? But it was 3-3 at the half, and then everything just kind of unraveled. And Jake Fromm, you got your chance to see him today. For everybody that was saying that Jake Fromm could be a good quarterback or a starting quarterback or whatever you thought he could be. You got your test. You got your taste of Jake Fromm. I was trying not to get your guys' hopes up. I was excited to see him, analyze him if he could be a backup quarterback. I analyzed him. Jake Fromm's not a backup quarterback. Jake Fromm's not a backup quarterback. Jake Fromm should not be a quarterback in the NFL. The guy threw up 2 wobblers. He had 25 yards passing on 17 attempts. No. New York Giants need to bring in a much better backup next year. It ain't Jake Fromm. Mike Glennon is horrible. Mike Glennon's a better quarterback than Jake Fromm. Jake Fromm is horrible. He was a 4th-string quarterback for a reason. You got your taste of him today when a team had a chance to prepare, and you saw the deficiencies in his game. I'm not trying to rag on Fromm. It's not his fault that this team is as bad as it is. And he should really never be starting in an NFL game to begin with due to the injuries that we have, and it was worth taking a look at him. We got our look. He sucks. This team is trash. But we'll talk about the offseason, the report that came out today. Made a video on it before the live today about Judge, about Daniel Jones, and the New York Giants' plan to bring both of them back. I'll field some of your guys' questions. I'm sure you guys have your opinions on that as well. And I'll try to understand all sides of it. Donovan says 2 weeks and we're free. Yeah, 2 weeks and we're free. And this season's been a mess. I mean, I'll pull up the draft order for you guys. This is the draft order right now. A lot of people have been asking, what's the draft order for the New York Giants? Where are we currently picking in the draft? The Giants got lucky today because Houston won and the Jets won, but the New York Giants still sit in 5th and currently 6th, depending on what Chicago does. I don't have the game on because it's not in my area, but they still will sit 5th and 6th because the tiebreaker, you may not be able to see it, is the strength of schedule. The lower strength of schedule, the higher you're going to be in the draft order. So the Giants right now have a 539 strength of schedule, and Chicago has a 518. The Jets at 514 and Houston at 494. So the lower the strength of the schedule, the higher you pick when you tie for the same record. Looking at Chicago's record, it's possible that they could certainly maybe pass the Jets. And maybe that's what you're rooting for, the Giants to win, because Chicago has the lower strength of schedule when we go up against the Chicago Bears. But that's the tiebreaker. That's why the Giants haven't moved up, but they got closer to Houston and the Jets, and at least the 3rd pick now looks like it could be the ceiling if this team can't continue to win football games. But that's the way it looks right now. But that's the draft order right now as we speak. The Giants right now will be picking 5th and 6th if the season were to end today, and we'll see how the Bears do. Jamil says, people better not complain about DJ after today. Listen, man, I still am of the belief, and I try to be as fair as I can, that DJ more than likely will not be a franchise quarterback, and it's just as much the Giants doing as his own. This team's been a complete disaster, and I think fans that think that Daniel Jones is the worst thing of all time got a chance to see what the worst thing of all time looks like with what the New York Giants have to produce. Daniel Jones is not a great quarterback, never going to say he is, but this team is a complete and utter dumpster fire. The offensive scheme is a complete and utter joke. All the injuries on this team. The New York Giants today, Jake Fromm had 25 passing yards on 17 attempts. Jake Fromm makes Daniel Jones look like Joe Montana. I mean, this team is a joke. This offense is a joke. What's up there, Pete? Man, thanks for popping in, man. Remember when you said you didn't want DJ? See, DJ, I don't think you comprehend the reason why I don't want them. When I say I don't want those players, and by the way, I would be willing to take those players for the right deal, but when I say I don't want those quarterbacks, it's not because I don't think, like, that's like, asking me if I think Aaron Rodgers is better than Daniel Jones it's like asking I don't know, come up with the most obvious answer to something. I can't come up with something off the top of my head. Of course those guys are better. The reason I don't want them is because the cost. It has nothing to do with that. Of course Aaron Rodgers is better than Daniel Jones. Of course Russell Wilson is better than Daniel Jones. Of course. It's about long-term thinking, and it's about what you'd have to give up to bring those guys in. It has nothing to do with who's better than the other. That's the reasoning. Of course those guys are better. Let's see what we got here, man. Chris, so the Knicks 14-18, they're back with the the Knicks finally won a game, at least on Christmas yesterday, man. What's going on, Authentic Man X popping in? What's going on there, Jameson? But this game today was just a complete joke. There's really nothing positive to say out of it. Like I said, the defense played good in the first half. They held them to 3 points. Jalen Hurts made a couple of big throws down the stretch. He hit Devontae Smith with a nice throw. I think it was Devontae Smith on the touchdown in the corner of the end zone. Made a couple of nice throws in the second half. Still not a great throw of the football, in my opinion, but definitely much better than the quarterbacks that we had out there today. And they ran the ball pretty effectively in the second half, and obviously the pick six, and that game just spiraled out of control. The Eagles absolutely smacked us. Brandon, man, thank you very much, man. If the G-men knew they were going to make Abrams the GM the whole time, why wouldn't they have fired Gettleman mid-season? I mean, I don't know if they knew it or not, but here's my take on the whole situation. And maybe you guys disagree with me in the chat. And there's definitely, it definitely seems like there's some Giants fans out there that want to give Abrams a chance. If they're going to go that route, which I think they're going to, I think they're going to go with Abrams, or I think they're going to go with O'Brien, or I think they're going to handpick a GM from the Patriots. If they're going to go that route, and you're going to insist that Judge comes back another year with the New York Giants, just keep Gettleman. Like, I don't see what Abrams brings to the table. At least if Gettleman came back, it would be easy to just rip it up. Like, if they bring back Abrams next year and this team is really bad, then they may be inclined to stick with Abrams for another year because they could say, well, how could you only give a GM 1 year? I would almost rather Gettleman come back than hire Kevin Abrams, because then I fear that you're going to give Kevin Abrams 2 or 3 years to figure this out. If you're going to insist that Joe Judge has to come back and you're worried about fitting a GM around Joe Judge and Kevin Abrams is the guy that you bring in, just bring back Dave Gettleman at that point. That's my take. And I'm going to tell you what the reason, at least in my opinion, why the New York Giants would hire Kevin Abrams and fire Dave Gettleman. It's not because they have any plans to do anything differently, at least in my opinion. It's because they're trying to throw the fans a bone, and they know that the fans will relish at the opportunity to celebrate firing Dave Gettleman, which they should. He's been horrible, but there's no change there. It's just like throwing you a bone and being like, that'll make them happy. We're still going to push forward with what we've been doing with. They're using him as like the scapegoat when you're not really making a change. Kevin Abrams has been the assistant GM for 15, 20 years with the New York Giants. That's my opinion on the whole Kevin Abrams thing. Dave Gettleman won the job over Kevin Abrams in 2017. That's my opinion on it. So that's my opinion. Abrams will not pick the players. Judge will. Has Judge earned that opportunity to pick the players? I don't know. I don't know, man. Let's see what we got. Teresa says, Merry Christmas, Chris. You guys made listening today quite entertaining. Thanks, from Palm Beach County, man. Thank you so much for popping in. Appreciate it. Tried my best to make it as fun as we could, man. It was a disaster. Big Daddy says, Mara has to clean house and change the field. The field absolutely needs to be changed. Obviously, I wasn't watching the Jet game, but a couple of you guys talked about how there was an injury in that game due to the turf. But he absolutely needs to change the field. It's way too many injuries on the field, man. I said that in a prior video earlier this week. That needs to change. I don't think they're going to clean house, Big Daddy, and it's why I'm not even trying to promote it at this point, because it's not going to happen. You know, I wanted to get my opinion out there so people can't say, oh, you always agree with the Giants. No, I don't. I would have blown it up. That's why I made my opinion, but I've thought all along that they were going to stick with Judge, and I thought all along that they would try to get a GM that could work with Judge. And if you ask me right now, what in terms of because I know Judge is coming back, so let's play grown-ups. Let's not just say the fantasy. Let's be in reality. If Judge is coming back, and my options are hiring somebody and fitting a GM from the outside with Judge, or hiring a guy in-house like Abrams, I'd probably hire a guy in-house with Abrams, because the way I look at it is this. If you're going to bring a guy from the Patriots that you fit around Joe Judge, you're giving Joe Judge a longer leash. You're not going to fire that GM after 1 year if you're bringing somebody in from the outside. At least with Abrams, I don't think you make the leash longer for Joe Judge. If you bring in a GM that Joe Judge hands picks that they're going to work collaboratively with, I think you're giving Judge a longer leash. He's going to get at least 2 more years here. So if you gave me the option, I'd probably just say go in-house and see if they could get this thing to work next year, if that's the route that they're going to take. Donovan, man, thank you very much, man. What do we root for next week? I said it. I mean, if you're just thinking draft pick, because obviously the Giants play the Bears, the weaker strength of schedule will whatever. If the Bears win, it's hold on. Let me look at the strength of schedule before I say this. The Bears right now have a 518 strength of schedule. The Giants have a 539. The higher strength of schedule in terms of tiebreakers with draft picks, the worse. So if you're thinking exclusively draft pick, you would want the Giants to beat the Bears because the Bears would have an opportunity to jump the Jets because right now the Jets' strength of schedule is 514. The Bears are 518. And obviously their strength of schedule next week is going to come down the Bears because they're playing the Giants, whose record is horrible. The Jets have a pretty challenging schedule going forward. So you're actually rooting for the Bears to lose to the Giants if you're rooting for draft pick. I think that gives you the better opportunity to get a higher draft pick with one of the 2 picks. So you want the Giants to beat the Bears. Blake, thank you very much. He says, would you hand more responsibility to a head coach who at times has looked totally lost with his current responsibility? Has Mara lost it? Yeah, I mean, Blake, I think the Giants have worked collaboratively for a long time since Dave Gettleman's been here. I thought that was a false narrative. I said it several times before the year started when people said that Joe Judge has more say than Dave Gettleman or that he has more say than what Pat Shurmur did. I never believed that. I thought it was collaborative. I thought it was collaborative with Shurmur. All you got to do is look at the defensive players that we brought in. They were all former Cardinals who played for James Betcher. Pat Shurmur, his hands were all over the Daniel Jones pick, in my opinion. So I don't think that's changed, but I do think Joe Judge has had a lot of say in these 2 draft classes, much like I think Shurmur had a lot of say in the previous draft classes and the previous free agency. So I think Judge is going to have the same responsibility. I think he's going to have as much say as he did when Gettleman was the GM. I think it's going to be the same thing. I think it's going to be the same dynamic that we had going into this year. If you're sticking with a guy like Kevin Abrams, I don't see major changes there. And DeGrom, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. He says, you guys should have watched the Jets game instead. Yeah, congratulations on the win. It's actually good for us in terms of our draft pick, but congratulations on the win, man. You guys have been fighting this year. Bill says, please, Chris, never say the words bring back Dave Gettleman ever again. I don't want Abrams, but nobody could be as bad as I am not advocating for Dave. Dave is bad, horrible. I understand that the fans want their pound of flesh. Just my line of thinking is this. And we don't know this, but if Abrams is going to get another year, like if they're going to hire Abrams saying we're not going to fire this guy after 1 year, if you gave me the option of Abrams or Gettleman, who I know for a fact they could get rid of after another year, I'd probably just say stick with Gettleman than rather bring in Abrams and risk the possibility of him being able to be here for 2 or 3 more years and giving Judge a potentially longer leash, because that's an excuse that they can now use at the end of next season. That's just my take on it. I want an outsider. I've said that now for 4 or 5 weeks. I would blow it all up. I'd bring in the best GM possible. They're not doing that. So from within the circumstance that we are provided with, I would probably just hire from within rather than try to fit a GM around Joe Judge and Daniel Jones, because you're not going to get the cream of the crop. And anybody that takes this job is desperate to get a GM opportunity. That's the way I look at it. So I think they'll probably promote from within. That's probably what they're going to do. But thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm not trying to say that I like Gettleman at this point. No, I want Gettleman gone. John says, I don't think giving our 2022 draft picks to Abrams is smart at all. Bring in an outside GM and let him fire Joe Judge after 2022 like Douglas did with Gaze. And maybe that's what they'll end up doing. I just don't think you're going to get the pick of the litter, if you do that at this point, because you're forcing Judge and Daniel Jones apparently on that GM. Like if they're rolling with Daniel Jones next year, which I don't even necessarily disagree with, based off the fact that most people feel this isn't the strongest draft class, I definitely want at least an upgrade at the backup quarterback spot. But if you're going to do that and you're not going to allow this GM to come in and at least analyze whether or not he wants to draft a quarterback, who's really going to want to take this job? That's at least the way I look at it. But thank you, John, man. I appreciate it, buddy. Nick says, don't worry, guys. Joe Judge is proud of the way the team fought hard. He's going to look at the oh, God. Yeah, he's really proud. Did we win? No. we might have lost by about 300 points the way this game played out today, man. Absolutely horrible. No, we did not win, and I don't expect us to win another game this year. I think we'll finish with 4 wins. I said it last week in my post-game video. I think the Giants right now are currently the worst team in the NFL. And I think today even further cemented that. You know, with Daniel Jones out, with the injuries we have in this team, I think we've gone from like the 24th best team to the 32nd best. I think we are the worst team in the National Football League right now. I don't think we're going to win another game. Would you take Riddick over Abrams? Yeah. And I don't want Riddick at all. At all. I want nothing to do with Riddick, but I'd probably take an outsider over Kevin Abrams. I don't see the logic in hiring Kevin Abrams at this point, other than that you just want to push forward with Joe Judge. And if you're pushing forward with Joe Judge, then at that point, I guess I'd stick with. I guess I'd roll with Abrams because it wouldn't give a longer leash to Joe Judge. But I don't want Riddick. I don't get it twisted. I don't want Riddick. But I would prefer an outsider to Kevin Abrams, but only if you were to move on from Joe Judge, which they're clearly not going to do. We're not getting an out. Let's see what we got here. No doubt we are definitely the worst team in the league. There is no fight in us at all. I'm with you. Touchdown Seattle, that's good. They're playing the Bears. That hurts the Jets, helps the Giants. Fabian says, what makes you think it's a GM player issue? It's obvious, a coaching staff issue, foundation. I don't care what the players you bring in here. I think it's a combination of both, Fabian. I think it's a combination of both. And then the other question I have, Fabian, is if you bring back the same dynamic, and I think a lot of us agreed going into this year that Joe Judge had just as much say, it was at least collaborative with Dave Gettleman. So if you bring back the same dynamic you did last year, you're bringing back the same dynamic that came to the conclusion that they didn't need to draft an offensive lineman in this year's draft. But I think it's a combination of both. I think it's player evaluation in the draft, poor free agency signings, and obviously not getting the most out of the players, not putting the positions in the best opportunity to succeed, setting these players up to fail. I say it all the time. It's what the Giants have done. All you got to do is look at a lot of these players after they leave the team. They get put in better circumstances and they look better. A lot of people hate Daniel Jones. I understand it. Do I think Daniel Jones would look better for a different team? Yes, I do. Do I think Saquon Barkley would look better for a different team? Yes, I do. But I think it's a combination of the coaching. I think it's a combination of player evaluation and not building a team properly, not being a modern-day thinking organization. It's a disaster, man. Blue says, if Mara is a long-term investor on Judge, do you see a Patriot Tree GM? Here's what I'll say. If they hire like Ziegler, I made a GM video for anybody that is interested in some of the potential GM candidates that I could foresee the New York Giants hiring them. In that video, I mentioned 2 guys that were outside guys that I, as a fan, like fantasy, I was hoping they could look for. But I always knew Ed Dodds was not a realistic possibility. But I mentioned some of the Patriot guys, Pioli, former Patriot guy, Ziegler. I think he's a possibility. But if they go that route, blue collar, if they hire, say, Ziegler or a Patriot guy, I think it's giving Judge at least 2 or 3 more years. Because I don't think they'll break up that dynamic. To me, it's almost like they're like, okay, we're starting from scratch. We now got our head coach, and our head coach is now paired with the GM of his choosing. That's the way I look at it. Maybe I'll be wrong. If it's a complete disaster, maybe you just fire Judge, like people have said with the Adam Gase situation with the New York Jets. But then I still go back to the fact that you still limited your original GM candidates from the start to keep Joe Judge. So why did you do that? You could have potentially gotten somebody better. So that's my thoughts on it. But do I think if they hired a Patriots GM rather than an in-house guy, it at least increases the probability that Joe Judge will be here longer? Yes. As opposed to just, say, promoting Kevin Abrams. Yes. But yeah, if there was a disaster, somebody would have to lose their job next year as well. But blue collar, man, thank you, man. Let's see. Bill says, I know it's early, but given what you know today, what's your top 2 picks in the draft? I got to know where we're picking, Bill, but I'm not gonna come up with my stance of what I want the New York Giants to do in this year's draft. That's gonna be my opinion. It all depends on where we're picking. It depends on who drops. But for me right now, and maybe my opinion will change based off what they do in free agency. If they cut Bradbury, we could certainly draft a corner with one of those 2 picks. But if you ask me right now, if the 2 top edge rushers are off the board, which they probably will be, but maybe not, Kayvon Thibodeau and Aiden Hutchinson, if they're off the board, I want linemen. I want linemen. I want linemen. I want to take the two best linemen possible. That would be my opinion. That's not what I think will happen. I think if Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau are off the board, I think we will take one lineman, the best available lineman, more than likely Evan Neal if he was there, or whoever is their top-ranked tackle on their board, and probably the best available defensive player. That's my thought process right now, regardless of position. If those two top edge rushers are off the board, whoever they feel is the best available defensive player, could be Hamilton, the safety, whoever they feel is the best available defensive player. If you ask me right now if I was doing a mock, it would be that player, and it would be the best available tackle. That's where my head is at, what I think they would do. What I do? I'm taking linemen. And if there was an opportunity to trade down and get future draft capital, I would at least listen. But that's where my head's at right now, man. And Jockey, man, thank you very much, man. Since we are sticking with Jones next season, what stat line would constitute a good season for you to sign Jones to a long-term extension? I mean, JD, people asked me this before the year started in terms of a stat line. It's more of a feeling than a stat line. It's more of seeing how he does in situational football, obviously winning football games. Like, if the Giants win 7 games next year, you're not giving him an extension regardless, at least in my opinion. A second contract, you're giving this guy a lot of money at the quarterback position. And you couldn't build a roster in his rookie contract. What makes you think you could build a roster with his second contract? My thought process is by the end of next year to constitute giving Daniel Jones a second contract if he is back as the starter, I have to feel he's a no-doubt top 10 quarterback in the league. And that's even to open up the discussion. I have to feel he's a no-doubt top 10 quarterback in the league. Otherwise, there's no point in signing him to a second contract, in my opinion. At that point, you reset the rookie clock. And that's not all his own doing. I understand it's been a really bad situation for him, but if you ask me right now, do I think I'll have that feeling at the end of next year? Probably not, especially with the injury problems and everything else, which is why I've come out and said that I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be a franchise quarterback for the New York Giants. But I think I have to feel he's like a no-doubt top 10 quarterback in the league. Otherwise, I'm not even interested in giving him that contract extension. Now, maybe you go the Kirk Cousins route if you're picking. Say the Giants win like 9 games next year. Let's just play the hypothetical game, and Jones has a good year. Maybe you go the Cousins route. Maybe you franchise tag him if you don't think he's quite good enough to give that second contract. You could franchise tag him if you feel like you're not going to be in the place to draft a quarterback and he's good enough to get to push forward with, but you don't want that commitment. So it's all situational and circumstantial. But next year, if he does not prove to be a no-doubt top 10 quarterback and you're in a position to draft a quarterback with good upside, you take that quarterback. But thank you, man. I appreciate it, buddy. And DeGrom says, y'all are going to draft 2 wide receivers. No, we're not. There's no way we're drafting 2 wide receivers. No way. No way. We signed Golladay to an $18 million a year contract, and we drafted Kadarius Toney in the first round. I've had my fair share of early wide receivers and doling out a ton of money for wide receivers when we can't block. I'm done with that. You got to fix the line before we start worrying about the bells and whistles. Better not be drafting a first-round wide receiver. Stanley, man, thank you very much, man. Hey, Chris, the way the Giants' offense runs to the clock offense and throw 2-yard passes every play, do you think they are tanking? I don't think we're tanking. I just think we suck. We suck. We're not tanking. Jake Fromm is horrible. Jake Fromm is a 4th-string quarterback. Today is what you saw today is what an NFL team is when they can't block and you actually have an atrocious quarterback. That's what you saw. It is ugly to watch. It is as bad as it gets offensively. Jake Fromm is pathetic. He's pitiful. And maybe Jake Fromm could look competent if he had a team like the New England Patriots. If he had a team like the Cleveland Browns where they could support him. But when you have a quarterback as limited as Jake Fromm and you put him in a situation like the New York Giants have, that's what this offense is. It's as bad as it gets. And I think you saw that today. I don't think we're tanking. We're just bad. Daniel, thank you very much, man. I prefer to lose the rest. Draft reasons, pick 5 and 6. We may be able to creep up to pick 4. Because like I said, I was looking at the tiebreaker, and the Bears play the Giants and the Vikings. The Vikings are around 500, and the Jets play, I know the Jets play 2 tough teams to close it out. So their strength of schedule should go up. And the Bears are almost neck and neck with them right now. So if the Bears and Jets finish with the same record, good chance the Bears could pass the Jets, even if they finish with the same record. The problem is, I don't really see the Giants beating the Bears next week. So I think we probably will be 5 and 6 at year's end, if I had to guess. I don't think we'll beat the Bears. I don't think we're winning another game. Let's see. JD says, worst team in 21 and no hope for next season. Yeah, I don't want to paint the narrative yet that I have no hope for next season, but obviously I'm going to go in very, very cautious going into next year. I got to see what the plan is next year, what they're going to do. But in terms of like being like a legitimate Super Bowl threat or like a, even a true playoff contender going into the year, yeah, I don't think I'm almost 100% sure I won't have those expectations. It's the NFL, anything could happen. You look at the Eagles this year. Nobody thought, well, most people didn't think that the Eagles would be a playoff team, and they're probably going to make the playoffs. So anything could happen. But in terms of being like a Super Bowl threat or even like a legitimate like team that could do damage in the playoffs, yeah, there's no hope for that next year. I missed your super chat. Your members chat. I'm looking at the StreamYard. That's why, Anthony. Let me see if I can find it. I got the regular chat up here. If you said a members chat, that's why I missed it. Hold on. There it is. I got you, Anthony. Sorry about that. Thank you for being a member for 10 months. It says, Happy New Year's, Chris. Writing on the wall says Judge brings in another Patriot is who? Writing on the wall, like I said earlier in the stream, to me it's either another Patriot or it's somebody in-house. Abrams. If you ask me right now which if they're going with like a guy with former ties to Judge, if he wants to take the job, I would say Ziegler is probably the most likely candidate. Pioli's another one. But Ziegler right now is kind of the right-hand man for the Patriots right now, and he's the next in line to get a GM position. So if they're going with a Patriot guy, I would say Ziegler is probably the favorite. But my guess is right now, I still think it'll be an in-house hire, man. And thank you so much for being a member of the channel, man, and Happy New Year to you, buddy. Let's see. Blake says, Mara going to give Judge a Gruden no, he ain't doing that, but he ain't doing that. And Blake, I said this when Gettleman came back in 2019, and I could be completely wrong, but my line of thinking was the reason why they brought Gettleman back, because I would have fired him then, like I said, because I would have wanted a head coach and a GM on the same timeline, because when you don't do that, things like this happen, when the fan base is demanding blood and they want some kind of change. Well, now, you may get a pass-me-down GM, or you may get a GM that is desperate to get a job, and you might not get the best candidate. So I would have fired him in 2019. My reason why I thought that they kept Gettleman was for something like this. And the reason I say what I mean when I say something like this, obviously the fan base is very upset right now. Obviously somebody needs to fall on the sword. Obviously somebody needs to be fired. If Gettleman wasn't here, who's falling on the sword? Joe Judge. I always thought the main reason why they kept Gettleman, and again, it's a theory, but the main reason why I felt they kept Gettleman when they had every excuse to move on from Gettleman when they moved on from Pat Shurmur was to use him as a buffer for Joe Judge, to give Joe Judge more of an opportunity to be able to build this team long term, so they wouldn't have to fire him after 2 years if things went south. Because they didn't want to have to fire another coach after 2 years. They know that the New York fan base is going to demand change, and they'll throw you a bone, and they'll give you Dave Gettleman. So that was always my thought process. But Blake, man, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. And Arginus says, I personally want someone from the Colts organization. I would love it. It's not going to happen, though. I'm not going to be in the business of selling full. I mean, it may happen in the future. It's not going to happen this year. Because if Joe Judge is going to stay and Daniel Jones is going to stay, Ed Dodds ain't taking this job. Which is the guy from the Colts organization. Or any, I just don't see it happening. They're gonna find a GM that's gonna want to fit around Joe Judge, or at least that's my opinion. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised, but that's my opinion, Argenis. Nick says offensive lineman, edge rusher in that order. Yeah, I got to see what we do with free agency. Like if we cut James Bradbury, we could take a corner. We definitely could with one of those picks. But right now, if you ask me, I would say edge on defense. I would say edge. I would say inside linebacker. Are our two biggest needs. And on offense, it's obviously every position on the line outside of left tackle. So, but I would rank the line as the higher priority right now, because you have to make sure that you have a foundation in place for your next quarterback. Or Daniel Jones. You got to continue to build up that line if you're bringing Jones back next year to, I guess, get a further opportunity to evaluate him. But if things, if he doesn't take that monumental leap, you at least have a better foundation in place for the next rookie quarterback. Nick says the only stat that matters is wins. I agreed. And at the end of the day, next year, if Jones does come back like the report says, and he's going to be the starter, If he doesn't get enough, if we don't have a winning record, there's no way you could extend him. I don't care what the stats say. There's no way. Adam says, I'm doing what JD's viral tweet says, drafting 2 hogs. Adam, man, thank you so much. JD's awesome, by the way. Definitely got to have him on the channel again. Love JD. You could even trade down a few spots and get picks and get Linderbaum with Neal, build the offensive line. You're preaching to the choir, man. That's what I've been saying since I've been on YouTube. By far, the pick that I was most happy with the Giants made was in 2020 when they took Andrew Thomas, and that was by far their best pick. It's long-term thinking. It's boring. I get it. Offensive linemen don't score touchdowns, but you need a foundation. I shouldn't say need. If you find that diamond in a rough quarterback, they could, but it should be every team's objective to make as good of a, to make, the objective for every team in the NFL should be to make it as good of a situation as they possibly can for their quarterback. And right now, the New York Giants offensive line is a complete and utter disgrace. And if you're not in love with the quarterback in the draft, if you don't feel they can be a top 5 or 6 talent, you have got to get this line situated. So I'm with you, man. Thank you, Adam, man. I appreciate it, buddy. And Harry says, hey, Chris, we need an outsider as the GM. We need an offensive-minded OC or coach. Changes required. We have to get this draft right, Chris. Harry, man, I'm completely with you, man. And that's why I would have made the change. And all I could do, Harry, all we could do as fans, like, we could bitch and we could cry. And I'm not saying you guys are bitching. I'm not trying to say that. But we could cry, but we can't create change. The only person that could create change is John Mara. So if John Mara is not willing to do that, I'm not saying that I have to agree with it, because I don't. I have to accept it and hope that I'm wrong, or hope that they prove me wrong. Much like I did this offseason. I completely disagreed with the negligence in terms of not addressing the offensive line in the draft, and I consistently said all offseason leading up to the season, I hope they're right and I'm wrong. And if they promote Kevin Abrams, or if they hire Ziegler and keep Joe Judge, I have to hope that they're right and I'm wrong. I have to hope that they continue to evaluate their talent properly, which you could at least, from an optimistic standpoint, you could say the last 2 drafts have been pretty good. But like I've said, the devil's advocate argument to that is, we were saying the same thing in 2019 about the 2018 draft class, right? Saquon Barkley coming off a Rookie of the Year. Will Hernandez looked pretty good in his rookie year. Julian Love, who's actually worked out to be one of Gettleman's better picks in the 4th round, looked good. You go down, that was 2019 rather, but you could go down the list. People were high on Lorenzo Carter, people were high on B.J. Hill. So I'm not going to just judge a draft class after just 1 year of seeing them play football, but I do like the way they've drafted in terms of the players they've brought in recent years. I like the fact that they traded down. I just don't like the fact that they ignored the offensive line, and I thought they put way too much faith in Matt Parrott and obviously Shane Lemieux, and obviously they had some unfortunate injuries before the year started. I understand that. I try to be as fair as I can with Gates going down and Lemieux going down, but all you got to do, all we could do if they go this route is hope that we're wrong and they prove us wrong, and that's all Giants fans want. Pan says Tony a quarterback. I mean, I kind of jokingly said on Twitter after the game that it's not even jokingly, honestly. You mean for the remainder of the year, not long term. I honestly think for the last 2 games, Tony would probably give us the best chance to win, not because of his throwing ability, just running like a wildcat style offense. I would think would give us a better chance to win than throwing Jake Fromm out there with this offensive line and Mike Glennon. I would think that we'd actually have a better opportunity to win running that offense, similar to what the Miami Dolphins ran that 1 year when they made the playoffs. That was kind of like half kidding, but I was also kind of half serious. But Kadarius Toney's never going to be a quarterback, not in the NFL. He's a former high school quarterback. He was drafted to be a wide receiver, but to win next week, it might give you the best shot if you're running Wildcat. Blue Collar says, I would like to see the Giants on Hard Knocks just to get an inside look into our team and organization. Well, that's never going to happen. You know that John Mara is like completely against that, and I actually am not. I know fans would get a kick out of it, and I'd be excited to watch it. Don't get me wrong, but I don't like it either. I think it's an unnecessary distraction for your football team. But from an entertainment aspect, yeah, I'd like to watch it, and yeah, it would be cool to get to see the inner workings of our organization, maybe get a better look on how they operate. But I don't ever see that happening. He's even gone on record as saying over his dead body would he ever allow something like that. Anthony says Jones staying, both first round picks, O-line, need him. Yeah, I think Jones. I think Jones is here short term. I don't think it's going to be long term, but next year, yes, I think Jones and a much better backup will be the situation for the Giants. I think it'll be similar to what the Broncos had. I'm not saying it'll be Bridgewater, but a quarterback at least comparable to Bridgewater or near his level going into next year. The Broncos brought in Bridgewater to compete with Drew Lock. I think the Giants will bring in a good backup. I think we'll have one of the top 5 or 6 backups in the National Football League next year, because next year, I don't think, I could be wrong, but especially due to the injury concerns with Jones, I don't think they'll roll out the red carpet for Jones. I think Jones will be the projected starter. I think they'll go into the season expecting Jones to be the starter, but if Jones plays poorly, or he obviously goes down, I think they'll want to have a guy that could come in and look competent. Dried chicken without the flavor, man. Thank you very much, man. I wish the NFL forced Mara and Tisch to sell the team. Yeah, unfortunately, that's never going to happen. Obviously, the Maras, have been in the NFL for a long time, and as much as we rag on John Mara, and in recent history we should, he did win 2 Super Bowls. I just don't see it happening. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I've come to the I've come to the realization that it's not going to happen. John Mara is going to be the owner. As fans, we just have to hope that he learns and grows, and hopefully whatever they do in the offseason works out. But yes, he's far from my favorite owner. As a New York fan, I'm used to it. I dealt with Wilpon for years with the New York Mets. He was a complete and utter joke. That's why Mets fans celebrated after we moved on, after he sold the team eventually, after he destroyed the franchise with the whole Bernie Madoff thing and spent like a small market franchise for years. And obviously James Dolan's a complete and utter embarrassment to Knicks fans. Maybe not so much recently, but as recently as like 5 or 6 years ago, he's been a disgrace. So I'm used to it, but unfortunately he owns the team, and I don't see him selling anytime soon. Ninja says, we should really get Evan Neal if he is still on the board in the draft. Do you think we should use both first-round picks for the O-line? I mean, it's circumstantial, Ninja. I don't know. Again, somebody asked me that earlier. I don't know where we're going to be picking. I don't know what players are going to be available. But I'll put it this way. If they do, I'll be happy. I'll put it that way. If you thought the Andrew Thomas reaction was joyful and excited when we drafted Andrew Thomas a couple years ago with the 4th pick overall, if the Giants took 2 offensive linemen with their first 2 picks, I'd be going bananas. I'd be ecstatic. Because it's not just about 1 year for me. It's about building a foundation for the next 10 years. And if you could start to get that offensive line situated, I think that's where it starts. That's just my opinion on the matter. I think that is the proper way to build a football team. Obviously, if there's a slam dunk quarterback, you always take the quarterback. And if they feel there's a slam dunk quarterback, you take the quarterback. But if not, I think that the appropriate way is to start in the trenches. And it's something that the New York Giants have not been able to do for the last 12 years. They ruined the second half of Eli Manning's career, and they've set Daniel Jones up poorly because of it. So, yeah, if it was me, I'd be ecstatic if they took 2 linemen. But I'm not just taking linemen to take linemen. If there's a player, if there's an incredible edge rusher that's there, and I think he could be the next Bosa, you have to strongly consider taking that guy, obviously. But if they take 2 linemen, you're not going to see me blink an eye. The sports reaction, man. Thank you so much, man. Happy holidays, Chris. Thanks for all your support back when I was stuck in the 80s. Of course, man. What's going on, buddy, man? Glad to see you, man. Hope you're doing well, man. And then TSR, the Giants suck. Worst New York Giants ever. Oh, my God. That's such a good call. I'd love to have you on the channel, by the way. I'm gonna do a lot of off-season content, and I'd love to have you on to talk about the state of the franchise, and I definitely want to do a lot more of that in the offseason. Right now, there's not a whole lot to talk about, right? So once we find out who the GM is going to be and everything else, I'd love to have you on the channel. But thank you for popping in, man. I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a happy holiday. As far as the worst Giants offense ever, it's got to be up there. I mean, granted, we have a third-string quarterback in there now, but the offense was not good to begin with, and we were near bottom of the league. Yeah, it might be. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at the history of the New York Giants. We've definitely had some really bad offenses in our history, but it's up there, man. That's for damn sure, man. The team can't get in the end zone. So if it's not the worst, it's among the worst. It's really bad, and it's bad top to bottom. Whether it be the line, the scheme, the quarterback. The whole team, it's just a mess. But thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. I hope you're doing well, buddy. Coded says, I legit wonder if we started petitions, hashtags, etc., we could get a new owner. It's not going to happen. I don't even... no. My answer to you is no. No. This guy is worth whatever amount of money, probably like $1 billion. I know he's not like the richest owner in the NFL. Petitions are not going to get him to sell the football team. The only way Mara would ever sell the football team He would have to be. He would have to. It would have to be a situation like the Mets, as the Chiefs just missed an extra point, but they're blowing out the Steelers. It would have to be a situation like the Mets, where Wilpon was forced to sell the team due to his financial problems, and he was blown away by an offer. You would have to have a guy come in with a ton of money and like people say it all the time, and it'll never happen. If the fans stop going to games, if the fans stop buying jerseys, and Mara's losing money or whatever, that is the only way it would even become remotely possible. And a guy would have to come in and pay a lot more than what the team is actually worth. But the way the NFL works, man, unfortunately, not only will John Mara be the owner probably until he dies, but potentially somebody within his family will probably take over. So we just have to hope they get out of this and start doing it right eventually. But I don't think hashtags are going to get the job done. Blake, man, thank you very much, man. The biggest question I have is why stick with Judge? The team absolutely has electric talent all over it. I don't know if it has electric talent, but I'll keep reading. Yes, the line is bad, but teams have made the playoffs with bad lines. We have regressed. That's on Judge 100%. Judge has not been a good head coach, particularly this year. He's not been a good head coach. I'm not defending Judge. I even said I'd move on from him because I think it would prevent the best GM from coming in. I am not going to say we have electric talent, especially with all the injuries that have taken place this year, right? I mean, Kenny Galladay's missed a lot of games. Tony's missed a lot of games. Barkley has not been himself, even though I thought he was getting closer today, but still not near himself. I don't think we have electric talent. I think if our offense stayed healthy and we had an average offensive line, I think we could have at least an average to probably slightly above average offense with competent quarterback play. But we never had a good offensive line. We never had close to an average offensive line, and that's part of it. Do we have an elite quarterback? No. But most teams don't. And like you said, they still find ways to put points on the board. The scheme comes into play as well. I think there's so many factors. I don't think it's just one factor. I think there's so many factors. But Judge certainly is not helping. That's for damn sure. And I do think he comes with a conservative mindset. And I think you've seen that since he's taken the job. But I'm not going to go as far to say that we have electric talent. I don't think we have electric talent. I think if we're completely healthy, we have suitable talent at the skill positions. If we were completely healthy. But I said it going into the year, Blake. I said it, and some people may disagree with me, but I said it going into the year. We've seen it when we had Barkley, and we saw it when we had Barkley and Beckham on the same team. We saw it when we had Beckham on this team. Yes, Beckham was incredible. Beckham created big plays, but the offense was still really bad. You need to be able to block to get them to have at least. I'm not even saying you have to have a great offensive line, but you have to at least be competent. To have a somewhat productive offense in the NFL, we just are not, and that makes everybody around the team worse. But I'm not defending Judge. Judge has not done a good job in terms of being a head coach for this football team this year, and I would move on. I understand the argument for keeping him, as I've said several times. I try to be as fair and try to analyze both sides. I don't try to be stubborn and just be like, no, this is the only way. I do understand it. I just disagree with it. At this point, I would move on because I'd want to bring in the best GM possible. Ralph, man, thank you very much, man. Not somebody must be fired. They all must be fired. Gettleman, Judge, and the scouts. I mean, I agree. I'm just at the point where I just don't think it's going to happen. But I agree. That's what I would do. But apparently that's according to Schefter. And long before this, with Rappaport, they've been giving us hints now for months that that's not what is going to happen. Asia, thank you for popping in for the super sticker. Mwah, thank you very much. Is Chris not seeing super chats in the? No, I am. TSR. I just run behind because it gets crazy in here. So you probably just posted. I'm sorry that I got to it late. Hopefully you're still in the chat. But yeah, no, I am. I'm just catching up to him, man. I apologize, TSR. I am seeing him. And Asia, thank you for popping in the stream. I appreciate it. And thank you to all you guys. Thank you guys for being the best supporters on YouTube. I say it all the time. And I'm sorry that this team, as I've been saying lately, I've been apologizing for how bad this team is, even though it's not my fault. But I just feel bad, man, that you guys have to watch this team. I'm not missing super chats, Asia. I'm not missing super chats. Christian Clone says, with Shep gone next year, which wide receiver do you trust over Kenny Galladay? I mean, the two best wide receivers for this team coming back next year are going to be Galladay and it's going to be Kadarius Toney. I mean, you drafted Kadarius Toney in the first round. You're going to now turn and draft another first-round wide receiver when we can't block? I mean, come on. That can't happen. I'm not saying you can't draft a wide receiver. You want to take a receiver in the third, fourth round? Sure. But we have much more pressing needs on this football team right now. We can't protect our quarterback, and we can't get after the opposing quarterback. Can't take another first-round wide receiver. That would be negligence on the New York Giants' part. It would be a horrible decision. But thank you, man. I appreciate it. Not to mention, this isn't like the richest wide receiver draft class to begin with. And Pink Pompey says, I'd love to see us give our 85th overall pick to the Ravens for Huntley. Yeah, I wouldn't be against something like that. I've talked about Jordan Love as well. I think someone like that is a possibility for something like that, like a third-round pick. I wouldn't be opposed to something like that. I don't know what the market would be for a guy like Huntley. What I would warn, in terms of people that think that Huntley would look as good here, and maybe he would, I don't know. What I would say is he is in an ideal circumstance for a quarterback like the way his skill set. He was brought in intentionally by the Baltimore Ravens because he basically is Lamar Jackson. He has a very similar skill set. The Ravens built their offense around Lamar Jackson. So I don't know how effective he would be with the New York Giants. But, if you could get a fairly talented quarterback that's not necessarily in a situation where he has an opportunity to start with some upside for one of those third-round picks, I'm okay with that. I just don't know how effective he would be with the Giants. But I wouldn't be against it for a third-round pick. Cool says, can't tell if we were tanking or trying to win. We're not tanking. We're just really bad. We're just really bad. We're not tanking. We're just horrible. We're a horrible football team, especially with all the injuries that we have. We went from a really bad football team to, like, atrocious. Ian says, Chris, I understand why DJ and Judge are coming back, but I don't understand why you would let a potential interim GM make the decision with 2 top 5 picks when he could be out of a job in less than. That's my problem with it, Ian. And my answer to you, if they go that route with Abrams, is maybe it won't be for only a year. But I don't think Mara's full of shit when he says that. I don't know, he maybe, when reports have come out that he feels he could be the next Bill Belichick. Maybe he doesn't actually feel that way. But I don't think Mara has any plans to move on from Joe Judge, not after next year. I think he wants this guy to be the long-term answer, and I think he's willing to do whatever he needs to do to make sure this guy can stay here as long as possible until he figures things out. I think I'm not saying, obviously there's going to be a time period where it has to happen, but I think he's going to do everything in his power to make that time period as long as possible. But yeah, the way I look at it is if they hire Abrams, Joe Judge is your GM. That's the way I look at it. And I'm not saying that Abrams has no say, but Joe Judge will have a ton of say in terms of the personnel decisions. If they keep Judge, which they are, that's the way it looks like, you're fitting, especially if it's somebody from within the organization, you're fitting a GM around the coach because you feel the coach is the guy that could be the guy that could eventually build this team up and get them to where they need to be. That's the way I look at it, and maybe I'm wrong. I could definitely be wrong. I just share my opinion on things. Maybe it would be a situation like the Jets with Adam Gase. I don't get that feeling from Mara, though. I don't. I think Mara thinks Joe Judge is going to be the guy, and I hope and pray he's right. But thank you, man. I appreciate it, buddy. And J-Man says, is Mara tanking for Arch Manning? Wouldn't put... No. No way. I know what you're saying, but that's like 4 years in the future, man. At this rate, we will be bad another four right in time to destroy Arch's career. No. John Mara loses money when this team is bad. I'm sure he's still making money hand over fist regardless, but it's in the best interest of the New York Giants to win football games for John Mara. You could raise the ticket prices. People will be willing to pay whatever they want. Whatever you want when you have a winning product. People will buy more merchandise, so on and so forth. I don't think he's tanking. No, not especially that far in advance. G-Man says, bad luck or bad trainers? Again, you're talking about the injuries. Seems like we have the most players on IR year after year. Yeah, people have asked me that. And much like I said, I forgot what the question was, where I said I think it's a bunch of things. The same thing with the injuries. I think it's a bunch of things, but I don't think it's exclusively the turf. I don't think it's exclusively the trainers. I don't think it's exclusively the fact that we have a history of drafting injury-plagued players or signing injury-plagued players, guys like Kenny Golladay. I think it's a culmination of several things in terms of the injuries, but I think the turf definitely has something to do with it. I didn't watch the Jet game today, but apparently James Robinson had a season-ending injury that was non-contact related on the turf again. So it's been way too much in recent years with the turf. I think that's definitely part of it. I'm sure the trainers are a part of it as well. I think it's a combination of several things, but I think the first thing in terms of like things that John Mara can absolutely do next year, he's got to change the turf on that field. And I know, I think Patricia Traina told me that they changed it 2 years ago. I don't care. It ain't working. You got to change it again. You have no problem changing your head coaches every 2 years when things aren't working out. They got to change the turf. There's been way too many injuries on that football field. I know grass was a mess in the past in terms of the upkeep, whatever, but there's been way too many injuries on that football field. Brett says, I saw a mock that had us taking Neal and Linderbaum and then a wide receiver at 38. I think the wide receiver was Dotson from Penn State. How would you feel about that? If they take wide receiver in the second round, as long as they address the offensive line in the first, I'm not going to cry about that. It may not be what I want, but you know, Brett, it's like I always say, after you get out of the first round, maybe if it's a very early second round pick like this year, but I think in the first round, you try to match need with best available player. You know, I think a lot of people actually think reverse of me, and I actually disagree with them. I think a lot of people think you need to take best player available as early in the draft. To me, and again, in an ideal circumstance, you match both in the first round with best player available and need. Now, if it's close in the early first round and you have a dramatic need at one position and not the other, I think you have to take need into account. I think as the draft prolongs, I almost exclusively draft for best player available. Because once you get out of the first round, like I said, maybe in the early second round, but for the most part, it's more long-term thinking. It's not guys that are going to make immediate impacts on your football team, that are going to clog holes right away. So for me, if they took a wide receiver in the second round, even though that may not be my preference, I wouldn't complain about it as much as in the first round, I would. Not in the second round. But it wouldn't be what I would want. But thank you, man. I appreciate it, buddy. And Blake says, if we take Evan Neal, does Andrew Thomas move to the right? I don't think so, no. I think Thomas, I know that Evan Neal's played right tackle. I think that's like a myth that a lot of people have talked about. Evan Neal's played right tackle. I think he even played guard at college, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll do more research on him during the offseason, but I know for a fact he's played right tackle, and I think he's played guard at the collegiate level as well. So, no, I think you leave Thomas where he is. I think Thomas has played well at the left side. Why would you mess with that? You know, that's been a problem that we've done on this team time and time again. Why would you move all these linemen just so you could, you know, you took Andrew Thomas 4th overall. It's not like he was like a second-round pick. He's played well there. I think you start Evan Neal on the right side, and maybe in the future, you know, if Thomas is struggling or you feel that Neal would be better. But I think to start out, I think you certainly don't touch Thomas. I think you leave him on the left side. And I think Thomas would be pretty pissed off if the Giants did that with the way that he's played this year, because obviously we all know as Giants fans that when a tackle gets moved from the left to right side, it could potentially cost them a lot of money. It's why the Ravens had the situation they had this year. So that's kind of if I was Thomas, I'd be pissed off if they moved me, especially with the way that I've played this year. So I don't see that happening. I think Thomas will be on the left side and Neal would be on the right in that situation. Ralph says you can build a franchise with draft picks and number one talent quarterback. Look at Cincinnati. I agree. But you got to hit on that quarterback. And yeah, I mean, I agree. Cincinnati's good. They're not yet a Super Bowl capable roster, but they're good. You got to hit on the quarterback. But I agree, a very good to great quarterback makes the talent on the team better. There's no doubt about it. That's what having a great quarterback does for a football team. If you feel there is a quarterback that is great, you always take the quarterback. If you're in a situation where you feel you don't have a long-term answer at the position, you always take the quarterback. And if the Giants feel one of these quarterbacks are great or could potentially be great, you take them. But you don't just take a quarterback to take a quarterback. That's my mindset on it. If you're not absolutely in love with the prospect, you fill the rest of your team until such time you are. Because if you keep forcing quarterback picks, you put yourself in a hole where you're going to keep putting these quarterbacks in a situation where they can't be successful. That's just my take on it. But Ralph, man, thank you very much, man. And Gary says, Mara really needs to change his mind after seeing this game and fire everybody. I mean, here's my, Gary, you know my opinion, I've stated it, but I don't think this game, like if Mara thought going into this game that he didn't want to fire Judge and he wanted to bring back Judge and he wanted to bring back Jones, why would this game change his opinion? Like, think logically, like today you had a third string quarterback. You had one capable left tackle like you've had all year. You have a banged-up defense. Why would this game change his opinion? He had Jake Fromm at quarterback. Jake Fromm could throw. I watched the game today. Jake Fromm could throw the ball, pick it up where the ball landed, and throw it again, and Pat Mahomes could throw it further in one throw. He has no talent at the quarterback position. If I was Mara going into this game and I wanted to keep Judge, today's game wouldn't change my opinion on that. That's the way I look at it. And Blake says, if we suck next year, imagine the Judge hate. Judge is going to be the next guy on the chopping block next year. And that's the other thing that scares me that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. I've been talking about the last couple of weeks is Judge is going to come back next year knowing that he's next on the chopping block. He no longer has that buffer, that Dave Gettleman buffer, and this long-term thinking that he's expressed since he's been here. He's not going to be able to sell that anymore. You can't do that, and Judge is going to know that, and that's something I worry about going into next year. Is Judge going to, and you kind of saw it already in free agency this year, but they struck out with the injuries, so on and so forth. Is Judge going to ignore what may be in the best long-term interest of this football team to save his job going into next year? So we'll see. V-Rock says, Bad Dog, this team pees sitting down. Yeah, that sums it up quite well, man. Tom Ty says, Thomas at left tackle, Neal at right tackle, and Faruqi at left guard and right guard. Maybe that's the tandem that we need, Tom. That may be the tandem that we need on the on the offensive line. That was a great quote by Bad Dog today. I was dying of laughter when he said that. But sure up the offensive line for sure, man. Christian Cologne says, would the Giants draft a backup quarterback, minimize the salary hit? They could. I wouldn't take a quarter. I mean, if I'm drafting a quarterback, is like, you know, with the immediate needs that this team has, I wouldn't. If I'm gonna draft a quarterback, maybe with some upside that maybe could eventually become a starter that would go into the year as the backup for Daniel Jones, the earliest I would do it is pick 85. I wouldn't do it in the first round with either of our first two picks. I wouldn't do it in the second round. I would do it with our second, third round pick. I think that's the earliest that I would do it. If I was drafting a quarterback that could compete with Daniel Jones and potentially be the backup, I wouldn't do it before that pick. They could do that, but the way I look at, and I mean, you saw the Ravens do it, right? I think Huntley was actually undrafted, if I'm not mistaken, by the Ravens with Lamar Jackson. But yeah, that's an option. That's an option if they feel that the quarterbacks are going to be out of their price range in terms of free agency because they don't have much cap space to begin with. Yeah, I think that's certainly an option. Let's see what we got here. Take the kid from Pitt. You want to take him? We'll see. I mean, I'm going to be as fair as I can. I'm going to try to be as objective as I can this offseason. And yeah, I mean, you guys know my opinion on it, and I doubt my opinion is going to change on what I think the Giants should do in this draft. But I'm going to try to be as fair as I can and as objective as I can, and I'm going to try to go in with a completely unbiased perspective and try to see what some of you guys may see in the quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, and see if I feel like they are worthy of a fit. I don't think I'm going to feel that way, though. Maybe I will. I'm just not a guy that's of the belief that you just take a quarterback because he's better than the current quarterback that you have in a draft. When you're using a 5th or 6th overall pick on that quarterback, you're making a 3-year commitment. So if he does not work out, you can't then just draft another quarterback the following year, especially if you have the situation that the New York Giants currently have. So that's just my mindset on it. So I don't want to just take a quarterback to take a quarterback. Yeah, I think we all just want a good football team, Gino, man. What's up, MYB, man? Thanks for popping in, man. Seahawks winning 17-7. Trade for an established offensive lineman. Again, man. It's going to be hard to... I mean, I know we were able to do it with Kevin Zeitler, but that was kind of part of the Beckham trade. I think people said that after the fact. Like, it was all agreed upon, but for some reason they did it in 2 separate trades. When they sent Olivier Vernon over there for Kevin Zeitler. It is hard to trade for a good established offensive lineman in the NFL. Unless you're giving up a ton of draft capital, because good offensive linemen, teams aren't looking to trade. They want to keep them. And we saw what happened when you signed Nate Solder. Usually, I think, especially on the offensive line, the best way to build is through the draft. Chris, if we get Neal, are you doing that Bears trade again? if we get Neil, am I doing the Bears trade again? The Bears trade to me is going to come down to whether or not we won. I'm not going to be able to just base it off of if we draft said player. It's going to be determined on how that player plays and how Kadarius Toney continues to play. If you ask me right now, like, let me ask you guys in the chat. I'm not going to be able to read all your responses, but let me ask you guys in the chat right now. If I told you today, and obviously this is hindsight GM, but if I told you today you could have had either Micah Parsons or Rashawn Slater or Kadarius Toney and the 5th overall pick, what are you taking? I'm taking the guarantee. I'm taking the guaranteed game-changing Micah Parsons. The guaranteed elite left tackle in Rashawn Slater. Because it's an unknown. Based off value, we got great value. What does that value turn into? You still have to hit on the pick. You have a guaranteed top 4 or 5 defensive talent. You have a guaranteed top 3, 4, 5 left tackle. So for the New York Giants to win that trade, in my opinion, and I'm not saying that they lost the trade yet, but that player, whoever it is that they draft, has to be an elite talent. It can't just be a good player. Or Kadarius Toney has to turn into a top 5 wide receiver in the league. Because to me, Rashawn Slater right now is going to be an elite tackle, and Micah Parsons is going to be an elite defensive playmaker. The other thing I'll say is, if the Cowboys were to trade Micah Parsons right now, and be honest with yourself, what would they get for him? If the Chargers were going to trade Rashawn Slater right now, and be honest with yourself, what are they going to get for him? They're getting at least 2 first-round picks. At least. So the only way the Giants end up winning this trade is if this guy that they pick, Evan Neal, for example, if they pick him, ends up being a top 5 or 6 left tackle in the NFL, which he could. He better if you're taking him that early, but he has to before I could say that they win the trade. Tom says, if I sacrifice a GOAT, can we get Patrick Graham as a head coach? Is Patrick Graham that much of a difference? I mean, he's been the assistant head coach with this football team. Do you guys think that Patrick Graham is going to make that much of a difference with it? And I like Patrick Graham. I think he's been able to work with what he has on the defensive side, but I don't know. I don't know, man. Who should be our next OC? I mean, if you ask me right now, who I think our next OC is going to be, if Judge is back and Jones is the quarterback, which I think he will be, and I think both will be the case, I think it's going to be somebody from within the staff. I do. I think it'll be, I'm not saying that's what I want, but I think it'll be somebody from within the staff, at least for next year. That may change dramatically the following year if they move on from Jones and Judge is still the head coach. But for next year, based off the fact that Jones will now be entering a 3rd scheme, we already know that, going into his 4th year in the league, I think the Giants will probably say to themselves, at least have somebody that he's familiar with. So I would guess if Jones is the projected starter next year and Judge is back as the head coach, they will probably promote somebody that's currently on the staff. May not necessarily be Freddie Kitchens, but I think they'll promote somebody that's already on the staff. And I could be wrong on that. But that would be my guess. That's not what that's not my ideal circumstance, but that would be my guess. GMet26, he says, would you keep Kitchens at OC next year? I would not. He's definitely not like a dream candidate for me, but if Jones is going to be the starter and Judge is going to be back, I would lean, maybe it's not Kitchens, maybe it's somebody else, but I would lean it's going to be somebody that Jones is familiar with. But I could be wrong on that. They could bring somebody else in from the outside. But then the other thing you have to ask yourself, G-Men, because if you're in the NFL, an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, they are looking to go to situations where they could be successful, right? What elite offensive coordinator candidate is going to want to run to this job? Like, be honest with yourself. So, and when you factor in the familiarity aspect and everything else, if Jones is going to be the projected starter and Judge is going to be the coach, I'd lean that they would probably promote somebody that's currently on the staff next year. And Yuri says, the GIF I comment on your post pretty much explains everything. Oh, on Twitter? Yeah, I saw that, Yuri, yeah. But thank you, man. I appreciate it, buddy. Let's see. Bears losing? Yeah. What if Sean Payton is available after this season and Mara still wants Joe? I'd personally be pissed. Yeah, I would be too. Sean Payton's the type of coach that you drop whatever you can to bring him in. He's got ties to the Giants, so Mara, there's no excuse there. His familiarity with him. I don't think that'll happen. I think Payton will probably stay where he is. They got a really good team there. They're just kind of missing a quarterback, especially with Winston going down with the injury. So I don't think he's going to be looking to leave New Orleans unless he's fired. But I don't see the reasoning that they would do that. Thank you, Entertainer. See you next time. All right, Richard Arnold, man. Be good, man. What's going on, fam? With the mic, man? Thanks for popping in. Giants have the 4th pick overall. Unless Tankathon is updated, which let me share it with you guys right now. But unless it's updated, I'm going to hit the refresh. Nope, they're still currently 5th. And the reason they're 5th, and I don't know if you could zoom in on your screen, but the reason they're 5th, the tiebreaker is strength of schedule. It's the 4th column. The higher strength of schedule in terms of the tiebreaker, the worse. So right now, the New York Giants' strength of schedule is 539. So they have the same record as the Jets and Houston at 4-11, but Houston has a 4.94. The Jets have a 5.14. The Giants have a 5.39. So the Giants miss out on the tiebreaker. So they're still currently 5th. The Bears, who are the Bears playing right now? The Bears are playing, I forgot, Seattle. So I'll tell you what. Seattle has a bad record. They're 5-9. That may change by the end of today. If Chicago loses to Seattle, that is going to lower their strength of schedule, which is already close to the Jets. The Jets are 5-1-4. The Bears are 5-1-8. But Seattle's record is 5-9. So if Seattle beats Chicago, by day's end, the Giants may be at 4-6. They may have the Bears pick may be the 4th pick, and the Giants pick would be the 6th. The Jets would move down to the 5. That's a possibility. Which in that case, if you're thinking exclusively draft pick next week, you probably want the Giants to beat the Bears. OC needs to have a scheme similar to Shermer. I agree, Kevin. I would prefer a West Coast style offense. Giants could have won this game in the first quarter at an opportunity at nearly 6 turnovers. Good teams make those plays, and we're a horrible team, Brett. Any chance the Giants get first overall? No. If you look right now, first pick is Jacksonville. Jacksonville is 2-13, and they have a strength of schedule of 524. So, I mean, I guess mathematically, there may be a chance, but you would need Jacksonville. I mean, for that to even become... No, because you would need Detroit and Jacksonville to win their remaining games, both teams. And then you would need the Houston and Jets probably to win at least one game. So, no. I still think, realistically speaking, the Giants are probably about as high as they're going to get. I think 4 is probably the ceiling, realistically speaking, with one of their picks. Maybe 3. You would need Jacksonville and the Jets both to win a game for that to happen. You couldn't win on tiebreakers. And you would need the loser of the Giants-Bears game to lose their last game. So 3 is the ceiling. I'll take that back. 3 is the ceiling. Realistically speaking, I think as high as we're going to get is probably 4. And I don't see us getting much lower than, say, 7 or 8. I think we'll be between like 3 and 8, with 4 to 6 probably being the most realistic spots. Entertainment, delivering the entertainment. Keep it going, man. Fancy Big Dave's job. The players and coaches wouldn't mess with you. For the fans in the real voice. Oh, Jamie, people have said that as a joke, obviously. I don't think anybody actually thinks I could seriously be the GM, but it would be friggin' awesome. But here's what I'll say. If that ever happened, which it never will, I say that all the time. If that ever happened, you guys would hate me within like a week. So I don't think I'd want the job. I mean, I would. It would be really cool. But you guys would hate me within a week. We would no longer be friends. Let's see what we got here. Eagles take Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson this year. They're my picks for the Giants, so I think they're going to take Tyler Linderbaum too. I think they would. I think the Eagles would take Tyler Linderbaum because they need a center. Kelsey's getting up there in age. If Linderbaum gets to where the Eagles are picking, I absolutely think they will take him. And he may. Centers that could definitely drop in this year's draft, and they have 3 picks. The Colts, Miami. Probably the earliest they'll be picking is like 14 or 15. But if Linderbaum gets to one of those picks, yeah, I absolutely could see the Eagles taking him. I don't understand the Louis Riddick obsession. I understand it. I just don't agree with it. I'm not, and again, whoever gets this job, I'm going to give as fair of an opportunity as I can. You know, I thought it was very fair to Gettleman. I'm going to be fair to Riddick if he gets the job. I'm going to be fair. I won't be, and I think I have like a good reason. I won't be as fair with Abrams because to me, is just more of the same. Like it's basically just seeing if this could work for another year. To me, it's basically keeping Gettleman. It's Gettleman without the Boston accent. That's the way I look at it. Not to say that I won't credit Abrams and give him a chance from within the year, but of a much shorter leash, with Kevin Abrams than I would any other outside GM candidate. But I think that the main reason why Giants fans, I don't think most Giant fans want Louis Riddick, but for the Giants fans that do, I think the reason that they do is because he says what they want to hear. He's on TV. Kind of like I say. Well, I don't always say what you guys want to hear, but he's on TV. He's ultra critical about the team. He's a smart guy. Comes across smart the way that he talks, and they say that should be our GM. That does not necessarily make him qualified to be the general manager. Louis Riddick has come out and said some of the decisions in the past he would have made. I didn't agree with a lot of them, and a lot of them would not have worked out had he been the GM of this New York Giants football team, whether it be Dwayne Haskins, extending Landon Collins, not taking a tackle, taking Isaiah Simmons. So he said he would have taken Barkley, which obviously Gettleman's widely criticized for. So, I mean, but I think it's because he's on TV, and I think he says a lot of the things that fans want to hear. Let's see what we got. Jonathan, he says, Giants beating Chicago, screw that, give me the tie. Well, tie would be yeah, because it wouldn't hurt either pick. So yes, tie would probably be ideal. Yes, but realistically speaking, that's not going to happen. Ryan says, if we blow these picks, we're going to suck for a while. Yeah. I mean, whenever you're picking that high and you miss, yeah. There's a reason that the Jets always have been picking high recently. The Giants, Detroit, who else? I mean, those three teams have consistently been picking high. Jacksonville, there's a reason that those teams pick high because they either don't hit on their picks or they set those guys up to fail. Like, there's a reason that, bad organizations consistently miss on their early picks. Like, most people, I'm not saying every player that goes in the top 5, but most people, there's a strong consensus that those are the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 best players in the draft. And most organizations, if they were picking where, said teams are picking, more often than not, they would take them, regardless of the organization. Like, I don't know, and it's due to injuries, but Chase Young would have been the first pick in that draft, regardless who was the pick. But good organizations set those guys up to succeed. They build the team the proper way. Parema, man, thank you very much, man. Comparing to the last games with DJ, we had at least some competitive game. It's not even a comparison. And to me, by the way, this is not even like praising Daniel Jones. It's not. Like, Daniel Jones better be better than Jake Fromm. He better be better than Mike Glennon. But it's not even a comparison. Daniel Jones is a much better quarterback than those two, and I think you saw that today. Is Daniel Jones questionable in terms of being a starter in this league long-term? Yes. Does he have limitations? Yes. But he's much better than Jake Fromm. He's much better than Mike Glennon. It's not even close. It's not even close. This was a season of early, close losses and then just way too many injuries. We definitely had a lot of bad luck with the injuries, Joe. But I hate using that as an excuse, but we definitely had a lot of bad luck with the injuries this year. There's no denying it, man. Do you think we keep Roche? Yeah, why wouldn't we keep Roche, man? Yeah, Roche is on a rookie deal. I mean, I don't know what his contract is, but I would assume it's a 4-year deal. Or a multi-year deal. Yeah, Roche's been good, especially based off the fact that he was an undrafted free agent that the Steelers probably should have never cut. But, yeah, I see no reason why Roche won't be here for at least a few more years with the Giants. Just make Joe Judge the GM's. Let's see what we got here. I have watched Vic DiBietto. I don't know how to pronounce his name properly. DiBietto, I think. He's hysterical. I've watched his videos before. He's funny as hell. I should reach out to him again. When I first started on YouTube, I tried to collab with him, but he actually has an agent. And he was a really nice guy. I spoke to his agent. But, yeah, he said that we weren't going to work together. But at the time, I was, like, just brand new. So I'd love to have Vic on the channel. I think he's freaking hysterical, man. And Jihad, he says, can we trade Judge for a medium soda and new headsets? I'd do it. No, I keep seeing DJ say Ed Dodds. Ed Dodds, Ed Dodds, Ed Dodds, Ed Dodds. Yes, I would love Ed Dodds. But let me ask you this. DJ. Let's take off the fantasy hat. Let's think realistically. Ed Dodds is probably the most sought-after general manager candidate in the NFL. He's been a hot name. If it's not him, it's probably Borgonzi. He's been a hot name now for 2 or 3 years. People have called him the best scout in the entire NFL. He's had job opportunities in the past that he has turned down from other franchises. He's happy where he is. Why in the world would anybody think Ed Dodds is going to take this job? Knowing that Joe Judge is already going to be the head coach, Dan Jones is going to be the quarterback. Why would Ed Dodds take the job? He's turned down other GM jobs in the past. He knows he could probably get any GM job that he wants when the right opportunity presents itself. He would never take this job in a million years. It's not going to happen. We could talk about it. We could say that that's who I want. He would never take this job in a million years. And even if the Giants fired Judge, he probably still wouldn't take the job. But obviously with Judge here, it's not going to happen. Jeff says, don't blame Fromm. The offense and defense stink. If I were the Giants, I would forfeit the last 2 games. Bring back Jones. Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to like rag on Fromm. He's just what I knew he was. He's not a good quarterback. It's not his fault. He shouldn't be starting. It's kind of like a lot of the offensive linemen on this team. Like after we had the injuries, like it's hard for me to like rag on, somebody like Matt Skura. Like he's not good. There's a reason that the guy shouldn't be a starter in the NFL. Fromm was put into a situation where he can't really be successful. And I'll tell you what, even if Fromm had a good game today, I wouldn't have been ultra excited because he's a limited quarterback. So I was trying to limit my expectations. The Giants fan base got me a little bit excited. I said it on Twitter a day ago because it was something new. It wasn't just seeing Mike Glennon for another game, but the ceiling, and I didn't even think it was his ceiling. I thought Fromm was incredibly limited, but what I was hoping his ceiling could be is a guy that I could analyze and find out whether or not he could be a good backup in the NFL. And I don't think maybe he can be, but I definitely have serious doubts after today. Do you think we should go O-line the first 2 picks or maybe even first 3? I mean, JR, I never like to say like I never want to go into a draft saying like you have to take this position no matter what. What I'll say, JR, is they have to take a lineman with one of their first 2 picks. I'll say that. I don't even think that should be up for discussion. I think they have to take a lineman with one of their first 2 picks. I'm not saying they got to do it with both. I would love if they did it with both. But I think they have to take a lineman with one of their first 2 picks. And Cindy says the New York Giants. I don't know if you're a Giants fan or not, but yeah, we deserve that title right now. Earl says, Tana, this season is over. Our quarterbacks can't get the receiving core of the ball. They're making DJ look like Aaron Rodgers. Of course this season's over. This season's been over for a while. Of course this season's over. Mark says, I'm a Cowboys fan. Bottom line is your team has very little talent and is drafted bad. I hated Garrett, but he has nothing other than... I agree, Mark. I think I've been pretty consistent with that. And I think I've been pretty fair to your Cowboys team, too. I say all the time, if I was a GM, I would build the team exactly like you guys built it. I think you guys built it the perfect way. And I think, like, Cowboys fans, like, think I'm, like, taking a shot at Dak Prescott. I don't really feel like I am. Like, I think Dak, based off the way you built your football team, can win games. And I think that you guys built the team the proper way and so well that you can make a quarterback like Dak appear to be a top 6, 7, 8 quarterback in the league at times. Do I think he'd appear that way with the Giants? No. But I think the Cowboys built the team the right way. I think that's the proper way to build a football team. Of course, if Justin Herbert's there and he's an incredible quarterback, you always take him. But, yeah, I think you guys built the team the right way. Let's see what we got here. And Mark says, Dak is overrated big time for the record. Thank you. We've got a clear-headed Cowboys fan. I even have Giants fans that tell me that Dak's great, and they call me a homer. I don't think I'm a homer. Dak Prescott has one season where he's thrown over 30 touchdowns, and he's in a situation from heaven. He's had one season where he's thrown a QB rating of over 100. But he can win because you guys built your team the right way. And that's not to say he's bad. He's certainly at least a slightly above average quarterback. But you guys built your team the right way. We need Kirk Cousins. Why? What is Kirk Cousins going to do with the Giants? You think Kirk Cousins is going to win games with the Giants? Why? What would Kirk Cousins do here? Well, Kirk Cousins at best, if you draft a lineman or two, is going to get us what, 8-9 wins? What does that accomplish? And that's even if you build the line accordingly. No, I don't want Kirk Cousins. Let's see what we got here. What's up, old man? Thanks for popping in. You think Mara and Tish are on the same page as to how the team should move forward? I have no idea. All I can tell you, Anthony, is I agree. I would kill to have Dak as my quarterback. He's better than Daniel Jones. And Cowboys fans get defensive when I say when I evaluate their football team. It's actually a compliment to the Dallas Cowboys. You guys built a team that you could take a guy that is a slightly above average quarterback, in my opinion, talent-wise, and make him look much better than that. That's a testament to the way that you built your football team. Dak's better than Daniel Jones. I'm not saying he's not. This organization is a total disaster. We need a complete rebuild from top to bottom. Yeah, I agree, but I don't think it's going to happen. Offensive line is the offense. First two picks need to be O-line, no doubt. I agree with you, Mike. But, well, I shouldn't say need to, but if it was me, I'd be taking two linemen. I'll tell you that. I'm confused with the tiebreak. All right, I'll try to break this down for you as best I can again. So here's the draft order. If you look on the fourth column where it says SOS, that's strength of schedule. Okay? If you look at the teams that are tied with the 4-11 record, picks 3, picks 4, picks 5. The reason Houston's 3 is because if you go to that column, their strength of schedule is 4-9-4. And you go to the Jets column, it's 5-1-4. You go to the Giants column, it's 5-3-9. The higher the strength of schedule, the lower you are in the tie. So if you look somewhere else on that chart, there's 3 teams that are 7 and 8 at 10, 11, and 12. Atlanta's 10, Minnesota's 11, Cleveland's 12. If you go to the fourth column, Atlanta has a 4-6-2, Minnesota has a 5-0-2, Cleveland has a 5-2-0. So the higher the strength of schedule, the worse when it comes to ties. So that's the best way I could break down the tiebreaker. But that's why we are losing the tiebreaker currently to those other two teams. Let's see what we got here. The strength of schedule doesn't stand for save our souls, even though the Giants beat our souls each week. Even though the Giants beat. Tana, when are you going to shoot up? We need you to punt. I can't be worse than Riley Dixon, who, by the way, I have not ragged on at all during this live stream. I don't know how I haven't. I was ragging on him the entire live stream. I even said on Twitter that I think next week it would be more entertaining than the actual game for the Giants based on how bad this team is if the Giants had a competition to see who can make the ball go further. Jake Fromm throwing the ball or Riley Dixon punting the ball. I don't know who would win. It's about the same. It's about 35 yards either way. But, yeah, man, Riley Dixon is pathetic. And the Giants need to draft a punter in the 7th round. Save yourself $3 million. You pay him a 7th round salary, and you cut Riley Dixon. Get him off this team. He's due to make $3.7 million next year. He is horrible. He's an atrocious punter. Baker Mayfield sucks. I see you talking about Baker Mayfield. What does Baker Mayfield bring to the table? Does anybody in this chat think Baker Mayfield's a good quarterback? Because I don't. Baker Mayfield sucks. Baker Mayfield, again, much like Dak, even arguably more so, is in quarterback heaven. Odell Beckham couldn't wait to get off the Browns. The Browns have everything set up perfectly. They've got an incredible offensive line. They have a running game where I could be behind that offensive line and average 4.5 yards a carry. Baker Mayfield sucks. I want nothing to do with Baker Mayfield. We should draft the San Diego State punter. Yeah, somebody told me about the San Diego State punter. Somebody was telling me about him. But yeah, we definitely need to. I would draft the punter in the 7th round. So Chris, if the Bears lose, we have the 4th pick. I don't know that for a fact, Taco, but based off the math, yeah, because the Jets' strength of schedule is already accounted for because they already played. So it's relatively close right now. Like the Bears are 5-1-8, the Jets are 5-1-4. So, but again, I don't know if the strength of schedule updated yet. Like the record's updated. It has to though because they account for ties. So, based off the math, the Jets are 5-1-4 and the Bears are 5-1-8. And the Bears are not playing a good team. They're playing Seattle, who's got a really bad record. So there's a chance that we could be the 4th pick if the Bears lose. Yes, it's definitely gonna be closer, and it already is really close in terms of the tie. But I don't know for sure. Kobe says, I'm embarrassed I'm wearing Giants gear. I feel like people feel sorry for me like I'm a Lions fan. F them, PS F Mara. Listen, Kobe, man, I'm never going to be, I shouldn't say that. I don't blame anybody for being embarrassed for wearing Giants gear, but I'm always going to be proud to be a Giants fan. I'm always going to root for the Giants. I'm always going to savor the moments that they've given me as a fan, but that doesn't mean I have to be happy with the current state of affairs with this organization. I'm gonna sync with the team, though. That's what a fan is. You ride with them during the good times, and you go down with the ship when it's sinking. And right now we've been going down with the ship, but in recent years they are the Detroit Lions. They are the Cleveland Browns of what the Browns used to be. They are the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's the sad reality of this franchise. And they have been really since the second half of Eli Manning's career. It's just it looks even worse now because you don't have as good of a quarterback, and you don't have Odell Beckham that hit a lot of the deficiencies that this offense had. The offense was still pathetic when Beckham was here. It was just that he hit a couple of big plays here and there, which kind of hid how inefficient the running game was, and so on and so forth. So it's been a disaster, man. But one day it'll get better. I promise you that. Blake says we don't need to find a good backup. We have one, DJ. All right, well, who's your plan at the starter, Blake? Well, if you want to say that, Blake, well, what's your plan? You want to draft a quarterback? Is that what you want to do, or you want to sign an established veteran? What do you want to do? Like, let's take the Russell Wilson out of it. Let's take the Aaron Rodgers out of it, who I don't think Green Bay's trading. So what's your plan? You want to sign like Teddy Bridgewater and have DJ be the backup? I have no issues with that. I think DJ will be the projected starter going in. They will sign a strong backup, and if DJ is not good, he will be replaced. I don't know if it'll be week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but if Jones is struggling at some point in the season, he will be replaced. I think they will bring in a competent backup next year. I don't think it'll be Mike Glennon. Roast the boss. Thank you very much, man. If the GMs gets Neal with the first pick, then trade the 2 pick with a team in the 12 to 15 range and get the Iowa center with I would love that. If you're able to get Tyler Linderbaum in the 12 to 15 range and still pick up a future first round pick, that's a perfect draft for me. If you're able to do that. But the other question we got to ask ourselves, Ross, the reason that that we say as fans that we may not want to take a quarterback in this draft is all the other teams have that same reason. So you have to find a trade partner, and more often than not, if a team's trading up in the top half of the first draft, especially in the first round, especially in the top 6, 7 picks, they're going to have to give up a lot. And to do that, generally speaking, it's going to be for a quarterback. So you need a trade partner, too, and a team needs a reason to trade up. Maybe there will be. Maybe there won't. But, yes, in an ideal scenario, if the Giants could drop back, say, 7 spots, 6, 7 spots, get a future first for the 2023 draft, and still get a guy like Tyler Linderbaum, yeah, I think that's an ideal scenario for the Giants. John says, I don't care what anyone says, the O-line is a priority over the D-line. Defense is missing few pieces. Our whole O-line needs to be drafted, except for left tackle. Draft the right tackle. I agree, John. And, John, in today's NFL, it's an offensively driven league, right? And to me, it's going to be about the most important thing that the Giants need to do, even if it's not Daniel Jones. They have got to set up a situation where next year Jones could best succeed, but more importantly, the guy that more than likely will replace Jones could come in and be successful. And they need to start building that now. We even saw with Andrew Thomas, it took a year for him to really start to hit his stride. They need to start developing that now, and they have an opportunity in a rich draft class for offensive linemen to really hit home with that. And I'm going to sound like a talking parrot and a guy that repeats what he says all offseason, but I'm going to keep saying it until the New York Giants do it. They need to address this offensive line. They need to get it fixed. So I'm going to agree with you. I think that is the outside of getting an elite quarterback. I think that is the primary concern right now with this football team. During the draft today, all I could do was sit there and laugh with you. Yeah, it was bad today, J.R. Wood, man. I haven't forgotten about Nick Gates. King Chris TV. I haven't forgotten about Nick Gates, but I'm also not going to depend on Nick Gates. And I hope Nick Gates has a full recovery, and I hope he's incredible. I love Nick Gates. I think Nick Gates is an average lineman. I think some Giants fans overrate Nick Gates a little bit. When I say average lineman, I think he could be an average starter in the NFL. I don't think he's incredible, but I think we're so used to poor old line play, and we see a guy that's tough and gritty. But I think he's an average lineman. I think he could be an average starting lineman in the NFL. But I am not banking on Nick Gates to get back to where he was. The guy's had 7 leg surgeries. 7. You don't know if this guy's going to come back and be near the player that he was, but I'll be rooting my ass off for him, and I'll hope that he's the starting guard or center, whatever position we put. Like, just because you draft Linderbaum doesn't mean that you can't move Gates to guard anyway. That's where he was initially playing in the NFL. That's part of the value of Nick Gates. But, no, I have not forgotten about Nick Gates. I'm not going into next year banking on that he's ever going to be the same player. He has a very serious injury. I'm going to hope he is, and I hope the New York Giants give him every opportunity to prove that he is. But I don't think you can bank on that going into next year. Let's see, we got G-Men says, what's up with the Philly touchdown getting reviewed? We didn't talk about that either. I didn't understand that. And again, I don't have the volume on, so maybe somebody in the chat could explain that to me, what they said on the TV. But Linderbaum is small. I think he's like just right around 300 pounds, Sean. But he's real. I mean, at least when I see him on film and highlights, he's really good. He gets to the second level quick. He's tough as hell, but he is small. But maybe somebody in the chat could say how they explain that. I've never seen anything like that. The fact that they reviewed a review, that made no sense to me. But maybe somebody in the chat could say what the announcer said. I didn't have it on, obviously. MY Giant says, I hate this team. Garoppolo. The problem with Garoppolo, and Legends, man, thank you so much for the $2 donation. The problem with Garoppolo, and I talked about Garoppolo before the year started, and I'm going to get back to these. I was just looking to see. I talked about Garoppolo before the year started. Like, people asked me who could be a stopgap for the New York Giants, and I brought him up because of his ties to Judge and Shaplinski, who's the quarterback coach. The issue I see with Garoppolo, and I'm going to get back to the Super Chats, I just want to talk about this. The issues I see with bringing in Garoppolo is this. In terms of like a stopgap, not a long-term answer. He makes $27 million. And he's playing well enough where the 49ers are going to feel like they could trade him and not just cut him. Or they may even just bring him back next year, or at least to start the season, and have Trey Lance, and him compete for the job. But he makes $27 million. I don't see the Giants trading for him. So that's the issue I see with Garoppolo. Let's see what we got. I got G-Men. Julian Love, he says, I could see Andrew Thomas being like Joe Thomas. I hope so. Joe Thomas, one of the greatest linemen who ever lived. I don't want to go that far, but I hope so. All I want from Andrew Thomas is, I mean, obviously I want him to be the greatest lineman who ever lived as well, but I just want him to be a good to very good lineman for a decade plus. That's what I want. I don't want to have to worry about the left tackle position for 10 to 15 years. And if he does that, I'll be ecstatic. And I think he will, as long as he can stay healthy. I think he's going to, at a bare minimum, be a good left tackle in the NFL for a long time. And I'm happy with that. Blake says, I was half kidding. I like DJ. However, we need some quarterback competition. Bring in a cheap young guy. I like a Drew Lock and a veteran like Brissett or Trubisky. Well, they're only going to bring in one. I don't think they're going to bring in 2 high-profile backups. But, yeah, I would not mind a guy like Trubisky as a backup or a guy like Jacoby Brissett. I would not mind that at all as a guy that could come in and at least compete and be a guy that could come in and not embarrass himself if Jones goes down, and you still feel like you could at least be a competitive football team. So yeah, Brissett to me makes a lot of sense as well. I talked about him for the same reasons I talked about Garoppolo before the year started. I don't know what his contract would be. I can't imagine it'd be too much, but there's another guy that's at least a competent quarterback with ties to guys from within this organization. Judge, Shaplinski. I remember saying a lot of great things about Shaplinski when I did research on him when we were doing the head coaching search. So yes. V-Rock, Cincinnati. Yes, a lot of people like Ritter. I've looked into him a bit. I'm going to look more into all the quarterback prospects during the offseason. He's mobile. I have to look more into him before I could say that. But second round, it's not a financial commitment, so I see the appeal there. Me personally, I still think, especially being that it's an early second round pick, I would probably prefer not to take a quarterback till at least the third round if you're thinking about drafting a quarterback. But that's just my mindset on it. Of course, if he ends up being really good, then yeah, you should have taken him. But if you're going to wait till the second round, I think I'd probably just rather wait to the third and really try to get somebody that can make an immediate impact on this football team with one of those two, with that early second round pick, rather than taking a flyer on a quarterback. And Dried Chicken Without Flavor says, should the Giants consider drafting? Oh, I just read that, actually. Did two people just ask me that? Two people just asked me that. Wow, what's the chances of that? Thank you very much, man. Yeah, I just answered it. A lot of people like him. I've seen a lot of people talk about him on Twitter. Clapback Sports, who I talk to on Twitter every now and again, that he actually really likes him. He said he's his favorite quarterback in the class. I've seen some highlights of him. I'm going to watch him a lot during the college playoffs, because Cincinnati's in the college playoffs. I've watched him a bit. He's got some mobility. I don't want to speak on him before I really, get to do a good amount of research on him. I've done more research on the other quarterback prospects so far. I've watched him game film on Malik Willis. I've watched him game film on Matt Corral. Corral actually has a good arm. I see one common misconception that I've seen from people that have talked about the quarterback prospects on Twitter. I've seen a lot of people say that Matt Corral doesn't have that good of an arm. Matt Corral actually has a really good arm. I've seen him make 65-yard throws, 67-yard throws on a dime. He's got a good arm. I will say that about Corral. I've looked into him. I've looked into Malik Willis. I obviously looked a bit into Kenny Pickett. I haven't looked a ton into Ritter, but I've seen a lot of people talk about him. I've seen some highlights. I know he's got mobility. I personally would rather wait till the third round for a potential backup, though. That's just me. If Dave Gettleman is let go after 4 years, will the Giants hire Scott Pioli to be their new general manager? It's possible. I think Scott Pioli, and what's up, Timothy Frith? I always see you comment on my videos, man. You always come up with these insane, not that you're insane, but these out-of-the-box ideas on where you think the team's going to go. But I do think Pioli's a possibility. He's got ties formerly to the Patriots. He's got general manager experience. He's probably the only Patriots guy that I talked about in my video. I think he was. That has prior experience in terms of being a general manager. He was the general manager, I think, for the Falcons, right? If I'm not mistaken, when they went to the Super Bowl, when they lost 28-3, when they had the 28-3 lead and lost, I think. But, or maybe he was the assistant for that team. I can't quite recall. I know he's been a general manager before, though. But yeah, I'm sure he could potentially be one of the candidates. Yeah, he's my draft day crush, King Chris. I gotta learn how to pronounce his name, but I've watched a lot of highlight films on him. A lot of people pointed him out to me. The guy from NC State. He's my favorite offensive lineman that I've watched so far in terms of just watching him play. I'm not saying he's the best. I know most people think that Evan Neal's the best tackle prospect, and most people project him to be a guard. The guy from NC State, but that guy is tough as freaking nails, and it's not just on highlights. I went back and watched game film on him where they show the clips for the games. That guy, if he can hit you 4 times, he wants to do it. He's friggin' mean. Like the knock that people say about Matt Parrott, it's the opposite with him. People say Matt Parrott's too nice, he's too soft. This guy wants to hit you 8 times if he can. I like him a lot. Yeah, I like him a lot, Raziel. Chris, are you done with Barkley, or would you want him back? I mean, Barkley's coming back next year. Barkley's coming back next year. I know that. The question is it going to be long-term? My guess is probably not. But Barkley will be back next year. I don't think we're going to get rid of him. I don't think he'll be back after that, but next year I think he'll be back. He could be a great right tackle. Yeah, a lot of people think he'd be, but they said the same thing about Wirfs, if you remember, right? Forever MYG. People said the same thing about Wirfs. They said he projects better as a guard, and now he's one of the best tackles in football. So just because people say that doesn't mean that he can't be a great tackle. But I know a lot of people said they think he'd be better suited at guard than tackle. Where do we sit in the draft order? This is the current draft order right now. We're still 5. If my math serves me correctly, Chicago at least has a chance to be the 4th pick by the end of today. They could pass the Jets. It's 5-18 on the strength of schedule, which is the tiebreaker. The Jets are 5-14. So I'll check back after the Chicago game, but I think it's possible at least that Chicago's pick could be the 4th pick if they lose by the end of today. Dustin says, after watching Talking Giants pregame live with Bobby and Justin, I think Joe. Okay, I've not done any research on him. I will look into him. I've not done any research on him. I will type. I don't even know him. Yeah. Maybe when I see him, I'll. Oh, he's with the Bills. Bills assistant GM to interview with the Panthers. That was last year. I would love that. I actually did a video. I mean, I don't know anything about him, but in terms of the way the Bills built their football team, I did a video on the Bills 2 years ago. I remember doing a video on that, and I compared the way they were building their football team to the way the Jets were building their football team, and talked about how I wanted the Giants to kind of mimic the way the Bills were building their football team. And I love the way the Bills built their team. Now, I know their offensive line's kind of been subpar this year, and they haven't been able to establish much of a ground attack, but I do think the Bills are one of the better run organizations in football, at least in recently. Teresa's, Saquon Barkley, 2.1 yards per carry today versus Booker, 4.5. Why? I mean, I have to go back and this is a Joe Judge. This is a Joe Judge answer. I got to go back and watch the tape. No, but seriously, I'd have to go back and watch the individual carries. Barkley did, and we said this during the stream, Barkley actually looked like he was running pretty hard early on. I think he had like 5 or 6 carries at the beginning of the game where even though he wasn't getting a ton of yards, he was hitting the hole hard, and he was getting what he could. He had a couple of good 5-6 yard carries. Booker, I think, sprang like one big run, if I'm not mistaken. I can't recall off the top of my head, though. But yeah, I'd have to go back and watch the tape, as Joe Judge would say. But Barkley's not the player he was right now either. I mean, that's apparent. But I do think he's looked a little bit better in recent weeks. But he's not the same player he was, and hopefully next year he is when he's a year more recovered from that injury. I think a lot of it's mental. I don't think he fully trusts his body. Personally, that's just my guess. But he's not what he was in his rookie year. But I'd have to go back and watch the tape. I think Booker had one really big run, though, if I'm not mistaken. Yvonne says, can't believe we're bringing back Joe Judge. I can. It's what I expected. I came to the realization about 4 weeks ago that I didn't want it, but I've always thought he was coming back. So I can believe it. I just wouldn't bring him. I wouldn't bring him back at this point, but Christian, I probably will. I'm assuming they play tomorrow, Taco. I haven't looked at the schedule. Obviously, I was busy the last week because of the holidays, so that's why I haven't done the more recent Knick games, but I probably will tomorrow if they're playing tomorrow. Who do you think replaces Gettleman? I think it'll be. I don't know what just happened. I just zoomed in on the chat by accident. I don't know how to shrink this down. Hold on, I'm gonna hit refresh. So I might leave the stream for a second. Hold on 1 second, guys. I'm back. Sorry about that. But I think I was just answering a question that's been asked throughout the stream. Who do I think will be the Giants' next GM? I think it'll be somebody that's currently on the New York Giants staff, or it'll be somebody that has ties to Judge, like what Rappaport said 2 or 3 weeks ago. The names that I could give you, it's what's been mentioned through the stream. Ziegler, who I talked about, Pioli, who's got Patriot ties, and obviously the 2 most likely candidates that are currently on the staff would be O'Brien, Kyle O'Brien, formerly of the Patriots as well, and the Lions, and obviously Kevin Abrams. I think it'll be one of those guys. What's an atrocity is the fact that our line still sucks after all these years. I think it takes a. I agree with you, Afghanistan. It's a disgrace. The Chiefs GM? You mean the Chiefs assistant GM Borgonzi? He ain't taking same thing as Dotts. He ain't taking this job. But yeah, I love him. Jonathan says, Chris, I've heard you say the Giants don't have to take O-line with the first 2 picks, but I disagree. If they don't, how do they address the offensive? I mean, Jonathan, here's what I'll say. When I say they don't have to, I'm not going to destroy them as long as they take one. If they feel like there's an elite defensive player with the other pick, and preferably take an offensive lineman with that second round pick. But if it was me, man, I know people always talk about, oh, you could get value on the line. You could say that about any position in football. You could say that about any position in football. I've done videos on this. And if you guys would like, I could do them again. But I've done extensive research on this, breaking down where are the best positions to get value in the draft. The wide receiver position, if I remember correctly, based on my research, over a 10-year sample size straight, 67% of the Pro Bowlers came second round or later. 33% came in the first round. The offensive tackle was like reversed. It was like 66% of the Pro Bowlers came in the first round. 33% came second round or later. But you can say that about any position in football in terms of being able to get value. You get value at any outside of quarterback. Generally, you want to take your quarterback in the first if you really like the guy. But you can say that about any position. And for me, as big of a need as this is, we're not in a position to go value on the offensive line because, quite frankly, our offense is not good enough to be able to bring in value linemen and for them to excel. Do you think these guys that the Chiefs drafted would have looked the same in Giants pool this year? I guarantee you they wouldn't have. They don't have Pat Mahomes. They don't have Andy Reid. We need to get the best possible lineman we could get. So I'm with you. We got to fix that. Any news on Matt Parrott? Any news on Matt Parrott? He got hurt today, so I don't know, but if Tibbs or Hutch are available, I agree. If there's a ridiculous edge rusher, you take him. I agree with that. With one of the picks. Chris, any good edge rushers in free agent? We don't have any money. We're not going to be able to sign an edge rusher. We have no money. You might be able to get a value guy, but you're not getting a top tier guy. Parrott had some sort of knee injury. Yeah, well, it looked like Albin, and I haven't heard anything because I went live basically right after the game. But when he went down with the injury, he went to grab his knee, or like right below his knee. It looked like when he went down with the injury. So yeah, it didn't look like it was like on the foot. It looked like it was near the knee area. Creed Humphrey, Jordan Mailata, David Bakatari weren't first rounders. Correct. David Bakatari, and I'm not saying it can't happen. I could say that, first off, before we get into this conversation, I could say that about any position. Including the quarterback. Tom Brady was a 7th rounder. I could say that Tony Romo was undrafted. I could say that about any position before we get into this conversation. David Bakatari, who's his quarterback? I'd love to know. Let me know. Who's David Bakatari's quarterback? You don't think Aaron Rodgers helps David Bakatari look better? Who's Creed Humphrey's quarterback? Let's see what we got here. Ryan, man, thank you very much, man. How does like 2 to 3 people get hurt a game? Because the Giants have the worst luck in the world, and several of our other factors, the field, injury concerns. We bring in injury-prone players, medical staff. I don't know, man. We have the worst luck in the world. Oh, I said 7th. I meant to say 6th. My mistake. 7th, 6th, 7th. Semantics at that point. Elvis, man, thank you very much, man. Who's the starting quarterback next week? My guess is it'll be Glennon. I don't care, really. They're both horrible, but my guess is it'll be Glennon. We could create cap space. I agree. We could create cap space, but Lucas, with the cap space that we could... Lucas, if it was me... All right, let me put my GM hat on. I'll never be a GM. But if I was able to create some cap space, say you're able... I've gone over this. I made a video on this. I think we could create $35 to $40 million in space, but then you factor that the draft is going to be about $15 million. I think you could create up to about $25 to $30 million to play with. But if it was me, if I was able to create up to $25 to $30 million to play with, and keep in mind, if you did that, you're creating other holes for your football team. To do that, you have to cut Bradbury. So that's another hole for your football team. You have to then draft a cornerback relatively early, so on and so forth. But if you were able to do that, if it was me, I would think about long-term propositions. I would think about potentially extending players on this team to get them that I think are going to be long-term pieces for this football team under the current market rate rather than waiting 2 or 3 years. Now, I think the rule with Andrew Thomas, who would be the first guy I would consider doing this with, I think you have to wait 3 years. I think you have to wait till they complete their 3rd year before you could start extending players. But that's the first thing I would look towards. I am not going to be in the business this year of going hog wild in free agency. Not doing it. You can't do it back-to-back years. I don't see the Giants doing that. They have to be smart with their money, knowing that they have a limited budget to begin with, and they have to set themselves up the following year to be able to extend some of these players. I would probably cut Martinez because he's coming off the injury, and you save $9 million if you cut him. Now, maybe you could work something out where you extend him and you get him for a cheaper rate. That maybe they do that, but I'm not bringing Martinez back for $14 million. I'm just not. Ryan says, I don't know why I expected more from Fromm today. I mean, I think 4th year for first rounders. Is it okay? So they have to complete 4 years before you could extend them? I don't think you're right on that. I think it's 3. Because let me make sure. I think Tyron Smith, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe they changed this. I think Tyron Smith played 3 years before the Cowboys extended him. I'm almost positive on that, but I could be wrong. Maybe you are right. Maybe it's 4 years. You might be right. When will the Giants fix the MetLife? It's 3? Okay, he said it was, yeah. I thought it was 3. I think it's 3. So, yeah, so that's what I would do. I would start thinking about things like that. You saw, like I just said, I mentioned the Cowboys did it. I hate to give them credit all the time, but the Cowboys were smart. They extended Tyron Smith after 3 years. They gave him like an 8-year extension. You know what the Cowboys paid Tyron Smith right now? Who I think his PFF grade's like 90 the last time I looked. Let me pull up Tyron Smith's contract for you guys right now. You know what they pay him? This is Tyron Smith's contract. Tyron Smith is a cap hit of $17 million in 2023, $17 million in 2022, $7 million in 2021. And it was less than this, by the way, because they had to reconfigure the contract so that they were able to get, because of the shrunken cap this year, so they probably backloaded a little bit of the salary, but it was even less than this. $15 million in 2019. They extended him 2 or 3 years, I think 3 years into his career, because they were forward thinking. And people always ask, like, how are the Cowboys able to do this? How are the Cowboys able to do that? Because they do things like that. They don't wait for the contract to expire when the market goes up, and then they have to pay him a ridiculous rate. You saw the Eagles do it with Jordan Mailata this year, the tackle that somebody just mentioned. They gave him a contract where I think he was one of the top 10 paid left tackles in football, but in 2 years, if they would have waited the full contract, it would have been a lot more money to extend a guy like that. So that's how those teams are able to do that. They make moves like that. Can you show us what the cap is looking like this offseason? Let me take a quick look. New York Giants salary cap. It's not good. I did a video on this, but maybe it's updated. Let me stop screen, share screen. This is the Giants salary cap next year. Let me share it with you guys. And again, we know that it's, you could work around things. We know this, right? We saw it this year. But if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I got ads on the left, so I apologize if that's in the way. Yeah, they updated it. So something changed. Something always changes. But right here where my arrow is, this is their current cap space. $3.5 million next year. That's what they have. But of course, there's so many guys you could cut, reconfigure salaries. But you also have to take into account that the draft is going to cost them between $12 and $15 million, especially being that they have 2 high first-round picks. Those guys are going to make like $5 million apiece, unless they trade down. And then their dead cap hits, the cap hits. Bradbury you could cut would save you $12 million. Blake Martinez you could cut would save you $8.5. Sterling Shepard they're probably going to unfortunately cut because of the injury is going to save him $4.5. Kyle Rudolph's going to save you $5 million. I think they'll cut him. Riley Dixon's going to save you like $3.5 million. I think they're going to cut him. There's moves that they're going to be able to make to save themselves some money. But yeah, that's the current cap situation. And let me make sure I didn't miss V-Rock, man. Thank you very much, man. He said, O-line edge 1-2 a must. Too much talent there. It depends to me. I mean, it depends on how you feel. Like if the top 2 edge guys are gone, and I think like most people feel I got to figure out how to pronounce all these players' names, but the guy out of Purdue, I think the edge rusher who I like, but I think most people feel like he's probably the 3rd best. If you don't think he's the best player available, you could certainly take two linemen there with those first 2 picks and maybe go edge in the 2nd round. It depends on how you value these players, where you have them on your draft board. Chris, we probably go Kyle Hamilton. I think Kyle Hamilton's a possibility. And I personally would not be in love with that. But I do think I'm not ruling that out as a possibility at all. I definitely think he's a possibility. It's not necessarily what I want. Karlaftis, I know he's Greek. I watched a couple of highlight films of him. I watched the ESPN backstory on him. But he's pretty much the consensus 3rd best edge by a lot of people. Andres Rodriguez says Nate Solder better not be. He won't be. He'll be cut. I think. I mean, I think he only costs $4 million to keep next year. His salary is completely fluctuated. It used to say 14, and then they would have saved 10 if they cut him. I think it's $4 million if they keep him or cut him. But my guess is Solder's probably going to retire at year's end. But we'll see. But hey, Chris and chat, what's going on, Jesse Bryan, man? Thanks for popping in, buddy. I'm going to close this out soon, man. I've been live for a while. I got to eat, but I know you guys like to come here and blow off some steam, especially after a game like today when it was horrible. And I know, you guys want to talk about the offseason and the draft picks, and it's good for me to get a chance to talk about this team, especially after the game when, honestly, like I said, I'm like emotionally numb with this team right now. Like, it's like, whatever. Just let's get to the offseason. And this offseason, I'm going to be really busy. I'm going to be giving you guys... And I want you guys to give me ideas of videos that you like to see too in the offseason. I'll talk about that when I start doing the offseason videos. But I'm going to try to give you guys daily content, like prospects that I think the Giants should be interested in, just getting to know these guys better, background stories, so on and so forth. I'm not really a film breakdown guy, but maybe I'll have somebody on that can on some of the high prospects in this draft. I don't pretend to be that, but I'm going to try to do a lot of offseason content for you guys. Just kind of wait until the season's over. There was no reason to get upset anymore. Yeah, exactly, Steve. It's just like at this point, I think it's like rather than like screaming, it's you laugh. It's you laugh to like deal with the pain, I guess. We've been officially eliminated. Yeah, I mean, we didn't need to be officially eliminated for me to tell you we weren't making the playoffs before today, but yes, with this loss we were. Will says I'm tapped out. Offseason is a major deal. Of course. I'm going to be really active during the offseason, man. I can't wait to start talking about the offseason and starting to project what I think this team could do and, what I think they should do. Derek Carr, I've seen you mention him a lot, too. I mean, it all depends on the price, too. I mean, if you get Derek Carr for not a whole lot, maybe. I don't even know what his contract details are or anything like that. Maybe. I know I've seen people on Twitter bring that up. It all depends on what the price is for me. Derek Carr, to me, is like a fringe... He's like a middle-of-the-road starting quarterback for me. He's a top 15, 16 quarterback. He's a stopgap. If you bring in Derek Carr, that's what he is. He's a stopgap. Could he be a Kerry Collins like? Maybe. But Kerry Collins also had a very good team around him. But he's not a guy that, like, moves the needle for me. Like, in terms of, like, makes a Super Bowl, could make a Super Bowl contender even when we get things situated. Collab with Brosmo for draft content. I don't even know who that is, but I will look him up for sure, man. I'll look him up. But yeah, I definitely want to get, I would definitely love to get like a weekly series And I want to do a lot of videos for you guys. I want to become really educated on early on with these, because the first round we know, like the 8, 9, 10 guys we're gonna want, but with the second round, third round prospects, I really want to do a lot of research on it quick and early on with you guys, because I want to get to know them. Simon says, "Sup, Chris? Thoughts on Judge and Jones coming back?" Well, I made a video on it earlier today, Simon, but my initial thoughts are it's what I expected. So I'm not gonna act shocked. It's what I expected. It's not what I would do, but as a fan, what choice do we have but to hope that they're right and we're wrong? But yeah, I would prefer them to bring in the best GM possible. By doing that, you limit yourself. So that's my take on the situation. The Giants don't look like they're gonna go that route. As far as Daniel Jones goes, I know fans may think I'm crazy or they may not want to hear this. For the people that want to completely move on from Jones, outside of getting like a really good deal in a trade, that is not as much as being that you would think it would be for a quarterback like a Russell Wilson, etc. I think Daniel Jones is probably the right way to go next year, because I don't think forcing a quarterback pick is a good decision. With the team that we currently have, especially. So thinking logically, even though it sucks for, because I in my heart, I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be the long-term answer, and I know as fans we want to get that guy. It's not necessarily the wrong decision, at least in my opinion, to bring Jones back for another year. But like I said, I want to have a guy that can compete with him. I want to have a legitimate backup. Let's see what we got. Will says, "Are you okay with keeping Judge?" Yeah, I just answered that. I don't want to use the word okay with Judge. I don't think it's the right decision, but I don't have a choice in the matter. DeGrom says, "Never seen the Steelers get dominated like this." Yeah, the Steelers have been hit and miss this year. It's amazing to me. Mike Tomlin, to me, is one of the greatest coaches in the league. He's ridiculous. Like, the fact that Mike Tomlin has never had a season under 500 since he's been in the league as a head coach is insane. And Ben Roethlisberger's been there even longer. And you can say the same thing about him. But in fairness, look at the team Ben Roethlisberger's been provided with, because of the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers have been able to build. They build the team the right way. Tell me the last time that the Pittsburgh Steelers went out there and spent on a huge free agent. They built through the draft, and they know how to build a team properly. Ben Roethlisberger's entire career had a top 5 offensive line and a top 5 defense. Literally his entire career. But it's amazing to me that even this year that the Steelers are still able to finish around 500. They're just such a well-run organization. But thank you, DeGrom, man. I appreciate it, buddy. And Sean says, "Nothing expected at this point from the Giants and wasn't disappointed. Ever since the O-line injuries piled on, I knew they had no shot this season." Yeah, I agree. Sean actually talked about that a couple of weeks ago. I was going to change my prediction before the year started. And I legitimately thought they were going to win 9 games before the year started. But once I in the back of my head, I had doubts. Once, like, you found out that Gates was going down and Lemieux was going down, who had very little faith to begin with, but obviously I knew they were better options than, the guys that we're going to be scrambling to replace them with. I had serious doubts about our offensive line going into the year, man. But it is what it is, man. I've been numb to this team now since the Jones injury. I think that's when I knew, like, in terms of having any limited hope that this team could, go on a run and maybe win 8 or 9 games and sneak into the playoffs. It was done once we found out about Jones. Will says, "After today, it's a lot deeper than DJ. It's a lot deeper than DJ O-line, is it?" Yeah. I mean, I think we've known it's a lot deeper than DJ. Anybody that thinks properly knows it's a lot more than DJ. DJ to me was never the primary problem with this team. He's just not. The problem is he's not the primary solution. That's the way that I'd break down Daniel Jones. He's not. He has not proven to be a solution, but to me, he was never the primary problem. The quarterback is always going to get more blame and more praise than he should, and I think people know that, and that's part of the position. But this team stinks. This team is atrocious. It's not built properly. It hasn't been built properly for a long time. Jonathan says, "Can't wait for the draft vids. Might as well start now." I understand it, Jonathan. I just I got plenty of time. That's the way I look at it. And I think the first thing, I kind of just want to see the direction of the team before I start really diving into the draft. And I also want to know where we're going to be picking. But, I want to see who the GM is going to be. I want to see what his philosophy is going to be. And we'll get that shortly there after the season. That's going to be the first thing that I probably focus on, the GM search and what they decide to do. And once we figure that out, that's when I'll start hammering home free agency and the draft and everything else. But thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate it. Stanley says, hey, Chris, what would you be happy if the Giants draft Kayvon Thibodeau at number? Of course I'd be happy. Kayvon Thibodeau at 5 would be a steal. I don't think that's going to happen. But if he's as good as people are making him out to be, yeah, I'd be ecstatic. If you get either one of the top 2 edge rushers, you take them. Blake says, would be nice to get a shot at Ed Dodds. I would love Ed Dodds. Joe Schoen, to be honest, Blake, somebody super chatted about earlier, Giants talked about him. I know he comes from the Bills organization. Elliott Wolf, isn't he from, he's from the Patriots, isn't he? I don't know if he's still with the Patriots. I think he got to start with the Patriots or he's currently with the Patriots. I did limited research on him. Joe Schoen, I don't know much about, but I know he's with the Bills. And the Bills are one of my favorite teams in terms of the way that they built. Maybe not so much this year, but in previous years, I like the way that they built. But I don't know enough about those guys. But I just don't see those guys. I don't think we're going to get those guys, but maybe I'll be wrong. Chris, look at what I added you. I'll check it. I'm going to end the stream now, actually, because I've been live for a while, and I'm starving. But, yeah, I may go live during the week. We'll see. We'll see if any news breaks throughout the next couple of days. I haven't been live on the channel in a bit. Because, quite frankly, there hasn't been a whole lot to talk about. During the offseason, I'll definitely go live, do the midday streams here and there, specifically as free agency approaches. Maybe even do like a weekly midday live stream with you guys, especially if I get somebody on the channel to talk draft with me. I would love to do something like that, man. Get to know these prospects better. But I'm looking forward to the offseason. I can't say thank you enough for all the support you guys always show. And let's hope that hopefully we get this hopefully it's the 4th pick after the Bears game. I think it probably will be, but we'll see. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what pick we get and get the offseason underway. We got 2 more weeks of this mess, and then we'll start figuring out, what's the best way of going about fixing it. But be good, guys. Oh, the Bears scored a touchdown? I don't know the score in that game because I got the Raiders game on here. But be good, guys. We'll talk soon. Let's go Giants, man. Seabass says, y'all suck. Giants, just let it go. Seabass, I don't know who you're a fan of. John, be good, man. I don't know who you're a fan of. Let's say you're a Cowboys fan or an Eagles fan. If your team sucked, would you just stop rooting for them? Or give up on the team? Because if you would, you're not a fan. That's my opinion on the matter. If you're a guy that stops rooting for the team because they suck, then you're not a fan. You're a fair weather fan. So why in the world would fans give up on a team that they love with every fiber of their being in terms of trying to figure out ways to improve the team and be opinionated and talk about how much they love the team and want the team to be better if they're a fan of the team? That's my take on it. But guys, be good. Bears scored. That sucks. It's 24 apiece. So I'll turn it on the red zone and watch the end of that. But I'm gonna get something to eat. I'm starving. Bears won. Somebody just told me it's tied. Now they won. Hold on, let me see. Bears just scored a touchdown. I see that on the red zone. They took the lead. You know what? I'll stick around for the final minute. The Seahawks are going to get the ball. I'll stick around for the final minute. Seahawks are going to get the ball. 1-on-1 to go in the 4th. Field goal wins it. Let's see. Everybody talks about Russ Wilson. Everybody talks how they want to give away 9,000 first-round picks for Russell Wilson. Well, let's see what he's got. 25-24 as they're showing the Raiders in Denver. I'll watch the final minute with you guys. Hopefully they show it on the red zone. They just showed the Raiders scored a touchdown against the Broncos. And Will J says, I'm already hearing Kevin Abrams as a replacement. Yeah, I think he's definitely a legitimate possibility. Let's see if Russ could get the Seahawks in the field goal range. There's snow on the ground. I don't know what the wind conditions are like there in Seattle. So we'll see. I don't even know how their kicker is. But they're tackled down at about the 27. 53 seconds to go. You figure, and again, this is without me knowing the weather conditions in Seattle, what the wind is like, so on and so forth. For a 50-yarder, you got to get to the 33-yard line. So they got about 35 to 40 yards they got to get here in the final 53 seconds. They got 2 timeouts. Wilson's thrown for 162 yards and 2 touchdowns. Let's go, Russ. Come on, Russ. Come on. Here's Wilson out of the gun, takes the snap. He's going to throw a screen pass out in the flat. Get out of bounds. He does. Got 4 yards. Be 2nd and 6. Clock stops. 48 seconds to go in the 4th. Come on, Russ. They missed a 20-yarder? I don't like hearing that, man. They got it now at their own 31. 48 seconds to go. Wilson takes the snap out of the gun, drops back, steps up. Now they're going to have to burn a timeout. He ran up the middle. There's a flag. This is going to be a hold. They're going to lose, man. Come on. Jets fans and Giants fans are both watching this, and they're rooting for the opposite team because the Jets have the Seahawks pick. And the Seahawks just got hit with a hold. Now it's 2nd and 16. At least it stops the clock. Seattle doesn't have to waste the timeout. So maybe that works out to be a good thing. Blake, man, thank you very much, man. Elliot Wolf, currently with the Pats for the past 2 seasons, 2 years prior, Browns assistant GM, 14 years prior. Okay. Yeah, I knew he was either formerly of the Patriots or with the Patriots. I knew that. But I don't know a whole lot about him outside of that. But I knew that. As far as the other teams, the Browns built their team very well in recent years. So maybe he's a good choice as well. I've seen his name pop up a couple of times in terms of guys that they think the Giants could look at. Steve, man, thank you very much, man. We have too much to be proud of to give up. Oh, I'm never going to give up on my team, man. And you guys should know that with the teams that I root for, man. I root for the Mets. I root for the Knicks. And now the Giants in recent years. I ain't giving up. But we'll see. Come on. And now they flash to another game. I guess because there's a commercial. I'm sure they'll show the end of the game here, though. Because the other games are probably over. They're showing the Sunday night preview tonight. Washington, Dallas. Dallas is going to spank them. Dallas is favored by 9. If you're betting that game, I bet Dallas. I know it's a divisional game. I don't bet, but my brother does. My brother asks me for advice all the time on spreads. I bet the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to cover the 9s. Yeah, Washington is a disaster right now with their whole situation. Dallas is at home. I think they'll cover that 9. Yeah, I think they're going to cover. Eric says Washington will cover the 9. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. It's a divisional game. Now it's 3rd and 16, so I missed a play. They just got back to it. 38 seconds to go here in the 4th. Wilson takes the snap, drops back, throws. That's caught. Metcalf, and he's going to be a yard short. I'm not sure if he was tackled in bounds. They're going to say he got out, so it preserves the timeout. No, they're going to say he stayed in. Now they have to use the timeout, and they do. 30 seconds to go, so Seattle's got 1 timeout, and it's 4th and 1. Let's see if he got out. Yeah, he's definitely tackled in bounds. And he's it depends on where they spot it, but he should be like a quarter of like an inch away from the first down. But the problem is Seattle only has 1 timeout. So normally I would say use the sneak. If you say got 3 timeouts here, you can't do that now. You got to be able to stop the clock. And now they're going to the Steelers game. Pittsburgh versus Kansas City. Why are they? I mean, it's the red zone, I guess, for fantasy purposes. But they're down 36-3. Like, come on. Go back to the game that actually matters. Maybe they're showing this on CBS exclusively because it's the end of the game. Nope, they're not. Who cares about the Steelers game? All right, we're back at it. 4th and 1. 31 seconds to go. Get the first down here, Russ. From the 37. He's trying to draw him off sides, which is smart. It would keep the clock stopped. Oh, my God, man. The receiver had a full start for Seattle. 4th and 6. Oh. DeGrom's a Jet fan. He's saying, let's go. Yeah, Jets and Giants fans going at it right now. 4th and 6 here at their own 32. Shotgun formation here for Wilson. 4 wide. Takes the snap, drops back, under pressure. Wilson's going to try to run, and he's going to be short. There's a flag on the play. I think it's going to be on Wilson. He fumbled it, but it went forward. I think they're going to say maybe he intentionally did that. I'll wait to see what the flag is, but I think the Bears are going to win. No, it's on Chicago. Wilson's pointing towards the Bears. Hold on a second, guys. Wilson's pointing towards the Bears. And Dustin Mantegui says, Isaiah Wilson still wow, it's on the Bears. No, it's offsetting penalties, so they're going to redo the play. They're going to redo the play. 4th and 6. Okay, here's my issue with this. If it's offsetting penalties, and I don't know why the NFL doesn't do this. If you're going to redo the play, and I'm not just saying this because I need Seattle to win. I hate that the NFL doesn't do this. Dustin, man, thank you very much, man. Isaiah Wilson is huge. He takes up like the whole offensive line. But if you're going to redo a play, why don't you set the clock back to what it originally was? 10 seconds ran off the clock. It was at 31 seconds. Now it's at 21, but you're redoing the play. Like the clock should be what it was before the play started. I see this all the time in the NFL. I hate it. 4th and 6 here for Wilson here from the 32. Takes the snap out of the gun, drops back, rolls out to the right, throws, and yeah, not even close. Looked like Jake Fromm on that throw. Seattle's going to lose. Chicago's going to win. And the Giants draft pick. There's another flag. Hold on. There's another flag. Tell me it's a taunting penalty. Tell me it's a taunting penalty. Did they get it with a taunting penalty? Unsportsmanlike conduct on the Bears. Oh my God. Imagine if you bet on this game. I don't know what the spread is. And Seattle ends up winning because of that. Now there's 17 seconds to go and you're flashing in the Steelers game. Come on. Steelers just scored a touchdown for whatever. If you got Johnson on your fantasy team, congratulations. Deontay Johnson. Can you go back to the game that actually matters? All right. Oh, the Bears have it. Oh, so I guess they called the taunting penalty after the incompletion. Is that what happened? So it didn't matter. Okay. They're throwing snowballs on the field. Classy Seattle. But, yeah, so the Bears win. So that sucks. Yep. So they're 5-10. Let me look at what... I don't know if Tankathon updates. Let me look where we are now. I could probably tell you where I think we're going to be. Chicago wins, so they're now tied with Carolina, but they have a higher strength of schedule. So we're going to be 7. And Seattle won. No, we're going to be 8. That Bears pick's going to be 8 now. We're going to be 5-8, I think. Let me try to refresh it to see if it updates. Let me go to Tankathon. Usually it updates like right away. It still says 5-6, but it's got the Bears at 4-10. I think we're gonna be. I think we're gonna be 5-8, but I could be wrong. Of course, we play the Bears next week. We'll see what that pick. I don't think we'll get any lower than 9, based on the current standings, but. The Bears will probably beat us, so they'll get the 6 wins. And then, maybe, yeah. I don't think we'll get any lower than 9, but we dropped to probably 7 or 8 right now with the Bears pick. So, that sucks. But, guys, I'm going to get something to eat. Thank you guys for all the support you guys always show on the channel. The freaking Bears pull one out. We're still going to get 2 top 10 picks, but obviously you want the higher the better. Now, I guess, I don't know. I guess you're rooting for the Giants to... win next week, even though it would knock the Giants pick down. It keeps the Bears pick as high as possible, as low as possible, I should say. And you know the Giants are going to lose the last week. So if you're thinking exclusively draft, I think you're definitely rooting for the Giants next week. But, guys, have a good night. Thank you, guys. And I'm going to get something to eat. Be good, everybody.